Under the placid surface of a forest, where the ground appears still and the foraging structures appear to do nothing more than anchor nodes to the ground, a lot livelier activity is afoot. Thin threads that fade into darkness, conversations that never delve deeper, electronic signals that are not audible, linkages that are not linked via cables. To Sleep Science Top 1, we welcome you. Feel free to subscribe and join these serene excursions if floating through questions like sounds like a nice way to relax. Plus, if you're feeling really generous, tell us from where you are listening this evening. Understanding the scope of these considerations is reassuring. For a long time, researchers researched forests with the assumption that visible features were the most essential. Tree trunks, open roofs, the foliage, ambient lighting, the blatant building design. Decades of research in modern ecology, however, have uncovered a second forest lying beneath the surface. In this living interface, root systems interact with bacteria, fungi, weave soil, and tree boundaries can become unexpectedly blurry. Under the surface, fungal network forms some of the most significant associations. Not the show-stopping sort, but the kind that subtly constructs public works, expanding filaments, investigating minute fissures in the earth, penetrating areas where they do not belong, are foraging structures. For sugars produced during the day, these fungi can assist in transporting nutrients and water that have been accumulated throughout the night. Furthermore, when the fungus grows, it does not usually confine itself to just one tree. Clusters emerge. There are overlaps. The links stay, not with a warmth of purpose or the clarity of purpose, just a collection of interdependent interactions robust enough to build structure and sensitive enough to generate behavior that appears, at first glance, to be almost coordinated. Rather than viewing it as a fantastical forest full of nodes sharing secrets, tonight's adventure delves into the hidden network through the lenses of actual biology and systems science. In this type of narrative, a brain is not necessary for intelligence, and a group can form even in the absence of a head honcho, a treeless forest that acts attentively even when it isn't thinking. You should not be alarmed if you find this disturbing. Consistent use is another possible outcome. Simply said, subsurface forest isn't still behind the canopy of leaves and sunshine. There is interaction. Things are changing. The system is reacting. Take a seat. As the canopy gradually disappears, the subsurface should gradually become visible. Just standing in a forest makes the world appear peaceful. Historically, nodes have risen in the same places. The only time leaves sway is when the wind blows them. No one is in a rush. It seems like nothing will decide. Despite the seeming calm, subsurface forest is actually engaged in a great deal of activity. Forests change with the seasons. They are able to endure long periods of drought. When hillsides are burned to the ground, they rise again. Their response to storms, pest outbreaks, and changing climates is almost purposeful in its persistence. As supplies decrease in one area, economic activity decelerates another. Life returns, frequently more quickly than anticipated, when circumstances improve. From the outside, it would appear as though subsurface forest is deliberately orchestrating this. The absence of forests is what makes this so remarkable. Underneath the dirt, there is no brain. Instructions are not being issued by a central controller. Sending instructions from one area to another is nerve-wracking. Every tree remains firmly planted, devoid of any ability to move, think, or know anything in the human sense. Despite this, subsurface forest exhibits collective behaviors that are remarkably efficient, adaptive, and well-organized. Behavior does not imply intention in scientific contexts. None of these things, awareness, decision, or planning, are implied. A system's behavior is only its reaction to new circumstances. Conduct is exhibited by a thermostat. There is behavior in a river. A crystal in solution, nevertheless, exhibits predictable behavior in response to changes in concentration and temperature. Chemistry, structure, and feedback, rather than thought, frequently give rise to behavior in living systems. Forest behavior is typically described by scientists in terms of patterns. Some areas are seeing faster growth than others, taking up, storing, releasing, or redirecting resources. Damage eliciting responses that reduce additional harm. No brain power is necessary for this. All it takes are mechanisms with dependable environmental responses. Intuition frequently gets in the way at this point. Coordination is often mistaken for control due to the way humans are taught to think. It is common for there to be a planner behind complicated systems when they run smoothly. When components work together, instructions must be provided. Societies and machines both benefit from that premise. Mother Earth doesn't appreciate it. There are many examples of autonomously organized systems in biology. Ants work together to construct nests, direct movement within the colony, and divide up tasks, all without a single ant having a holistic view of the whole. Nobody in the immune system knows anything about the host body, yet it manages to detect danger, recall previous infections, and fine-tune future reactions. Every time, the results seem significantly smarter than the sum of their parts, since local interactions are repeated millions of times. This group includes forests. A multitude of seemingly coordinated tiny reactions give birth to the scene aggregate behavior. Foraging structures spread out in search of water. Light triggers a leaf's adaptation. Beneficial microbial community break down food sources. Soil is a medium through which fungi can spread. When taken individually, none of these things stand out. They produce an effect that, when multiplied over thousands of organisms and decades, gives the impression of coordination. There is a term for this occurrence. Complex patterns can emerge from simple principles in the absence of a clear direction. This phenomenon is called emergent behavior. The parts react according to their immediate surroundings. When seen holistically, the system exhibits a sense of order. Accidents do not cause traffic congestion. When no one is in charge, a flock of birds will fly in unison. The consequence of market fluctuations is beyond anyone's control. Intelligence is nowhere to be found in every instance. Interaction gives rise to it. This is the reasoning that shapes forests. In a forest, a tree has no idea it is a part of anything. Its immediate environment provides signals for light, water, nutrients, temperature, and chemicals. Patterns that no single organism could form alone become apparent when that response is multiplied by millions of nodes, billions of foraging structures, and trillions of microbial community. The subject takes on a whole new meaning when viewed as a system inside subsurface forest, rather than as an aggregate of individuals. How nodes think is now less of a mystery than how structure and interaction produce functional behavior. Why and how change can lead to stability. Methods via which adaptation can take place in the absence of planning ahead. Optimistic justifications are also rendered unnecessary from this vantage point. Having nodes that look out for one another and act in a cooperative manner is completely optional. There is no reward for benevolence in natural selection. It recognizes results that last. Longevity is a measure of how well a system recovers from damage and keeps its equilibrium. Not because they are moral, but because they are stable. Those systems become widespread over extended periods of time. Scientists who study forests have developed practical methods to quantify this stability. After a disturbance, forests whose subterranean systems are unbroken take less time to recover. Nutritional cycles are made more consistent. The patterns of growth level out. Disruptions to those systems make rehabilitation more difficult and make people more susceptible to harm. You don't have to believe in forest intelligence to make these observations. The only thing they need is to realize that engagement is important. How far this goes against common notions about intelligence is what makes it both disturbing and subtly interesting. A system's ability to act intelligently in the absence of conscious thought raises the question of whether intelligence is a property exclusive to living beings. It could be a system-level action. At first, such concept could make you feel uneasy. It blurs the line between purpose and result, between living and mechanical processes. But it also provides a more serene perspective on nature, free from the demands of command and complication. There is no long-term strategy in subsurface forest. Ignoring its resilience is its problem. Drought and recovery are concepts it grasps. It acts as though it does, though, because of the many levels of interaction that have developed over evolutionary time. It doesn't succeed cleverly, but rather because it follows laws that actually function. Subsurface forest's mystique transforms from a bothersome to a fruitful one once that change takes root. It is now irrelevant whether or not subsurface forest thinks. Because of this, a great deal of organization can develop with zero conscious effort. Subsurface forest remains intact in light of such question. This makes it more profound. Words like intelligence are loaded with negative connotations. Common mental processes that it elicits include awareness, planning, thinking, and memory. It has the insular quality of belonging in a human brain. Intelligence, however, has never been confined to the mind in the scientific community. Actually, there are plenty of intelligent systems that function admirably, even when given no instructions or function, not emotion, is typically used to characterize intelligence in the biological sciences. Will a system be able to adapt to new circumstances? Is it capable of resolving issues the environment presents? Is it possible to save data and access it at a later time? Is it capable of remaining balanced when subjected to continual perturbations? We are not dealing with philosophical inquiries here. Researchers from the fields of ecology to microbiology have asked these practical questions. Not even one microbe knows it exists. It has no idea where it is or what it's doing, but it can sense chemical gradients, navigate to nutrients, avoid poisons, and change its behavior depending on what it has experienced in the past. The bacteria does not give any consideration to these choices. Signals are received by its molecular machinery. An interaction occurs when proteins bind, opinions change, a shift in conduct. For the sake of this discussion, intelligence does not refer to insight. What matters is how well you react. On a grander scale, the reasoning remains the same. Intelligence is commonly defined as the ability to process information in systems science. To influence its future state, a system takes in data, processes it according to its own rules, and then outputs the results. The system's comprehension of those regulations is superfluous. All it has to do is continuously follow them. Here is where the concept of decentralized intelligence really shines. No one part of a distributed system knows all that's going on at once. You won't find a control room or a blueprint. The system as a whole can exhibit behavior that appears deliberate when observed from a distance, even when each member responds locally. One prime example is weather systems. Clouds don't choose to condense into storms. The fact that it is a hurricane is unknown to any air parcel. Temperature, pressure, and moisture interact locally to form self-organizing patterns. Without warning or purpose, the storm changes direction, intensifies, lessens, and then vanishes. While intelligence may be lacking, organization is abundant. Biological systems go a step farther in this regard. Cells exchange information by means of chemical signals. Feedback and gradients allow tissues to work together. Natural selection is a blind process that generates seemingly fine-tuned architecture in organisms over generations, allowing them to adapt. It is not planning, but repeated filtering that gives the impression of design. How this form of order comes to be is something that some scientists have been examining for decades. For instance, Stuart Kaufman has investigated the possibility of complex systems self-organizing in ideal environments. Patterns that are neither arbitrary nor imposed from on high often arise when numerous components interact according to simple criteria, as demonstrated by his work. They emerge as an inevitable result of communication. The idea that intelligence must be purposeful is called into question by this type of self-organization. Behavior in self-organizing systems is influenced by input. Because they are consistent, some patterns tend to reinforce themselves. Some people die out only because they aren't. As time goes on, the system finds stable configurations, not because they are consciously chosen, but because other options don't stick around. Make sure you understand what this does not imply. Mindless intelligence does not mean unconscious awareness. This in no way implies that computers are hiding information from us. It merely acknowledges that effective behavior might emerge subconsciously. A calculator can execute complicated mathematical operations without any prior knowledge of the subject. When it comes to temperature regulation, not a single bee in a beehive has any idea what the goal is. Unconsciously, an ecosystem keeps itself in check. The fact that experience has such a profound effect on human intelligence is one reason why this concept makes many uneasy. Concepts take center stage. Make your own decisions. Assuming that all intelligent beings must share that inequality is an appealing thought. Effectiveness does not necessitate prior experience. As biology has proven over and again, it calls for organization. As a matter of fact, it seems that awareness is a specialized and late-stage development. There was life on Earth for eons before consciousness emerged. Creatures of that age continued to alter Earth through adaptation, competition, cooperation, and reshaping. Success in interacting with one's surroundings, according to this definition, precedes the development of rational mind. This more inclusive view also sheds light on the rationale for the use of degrees rather than categories when classifying intelligence. A thermostat possesses only rudimentary intelligence. Bacteria are even more so. A colony of ants, much more so. There is no magic threshold that any of these systems abruptly pass that activates intelligence. They merely build up systems that enable them to respond with greater agility. Whether a system can think or not is less important than its ability to react in ways that increase its chances of survival. Could it identify a shift? Can it change? Can it level out? Could things get better? Forests and organisms are both included by these inquiries. This perspective removes the mystique from intellect without diminishing its importance. It becomes measurable in terms of response times, recuperation rates, and flexibility, becoming something concrete and observable, something that can be investigated objectively without trying to guess people's mental states. A subtle modesty permeates this viewpoint as well. It provides evidence that intelligence is more common than previously thought. Under ideal circumstances, it is a characteristic of well-organized systems. Intelligence emerges when there are a sufficient number of contacts, a sufficient amount of feedback, and sufficient limitations to influence behavior over time. Thinking is not diminished by this. This puts it on a scale. Instead of being an exception, human intelligence is seen as a manifestation of a larger phenomena. The mind does not exist independently of nature. Rather, it is born out of it. As this concept sinks in, the possibility of sentient forest behavior becomes less of a mystery. The lack of brains is no longer a problem if intelligence does not necessitate a mind. This changes the question's relevancy. The question is not whether nodes have minds, but rather if their anatomy permits them to do so. The shift is significant because it alters the focus that should be maintained. Focus shifts to interaction rather than intention search. The emphasis shifts from asking a system what it wants to studying its behavior in response to changing situations. Once that perspective is adopted, the woodland ceases to resemble a riddle, awaiting the revelation of consciousness. There appears to be a system here that has to be deciphered. For the most part, modern science has approached forest research from a very literal perspective. Starting from the ground up, what counted was what was visible. Canopies could be mapped from above, trunks could be measured, and leaves could be counted. Each of the four variables, height, light, growth rate, and wood, Yield was observable, manageable, and cooperative. It seemed as though subsurface forest existed nearly totally in the air when viewed through a scientific lens. Neither a dearth of knowledge, nor creativity, nor imagination drove this emphasis. Realisticism was the driving force. Forests provide solid ground and distinct lines of sight above ground. As it grows, a tree trunk does not move. Weight, photography, and classification are all possible with a leaf. It is possible to do a canopy survey annually. Everything gets a lot trickier down below Earth. Without the right equipment, microorganisms in the soil, foraging structures in plants, and tangled soil might be difficult to see. As a result of excavation, the buildings under study are disturbed. Researching subterranean systems still frequently involves excavating them. The subterranean forest was a troublesome and unreliable subject for most of scientific history because of this. Industries that relied on wood, fuel, and land management were early forestry's partners. Research topics were defined by the research questions. At what rate do nodes mature? Can a forest yield a certain amount of lumber? What is the effect of spacing on yield? The focus naturally shifted upwards in response to these inquiries. It was thought that foraging structures only served as basic supports. The soil was not actively worked with. Subterranean events were viewed as incidental. Because of technological constraints, this bias was further entrenched. Soil life was notoriously difficult to view before the advent of contemporary microscopy, molecular analysis, and imaging tools. It was practically hard to count the incredible number of microorganisms that were present. On microscopic sizes, chemical interactions between foraging structures and bacteria went undetected. Subterranean networks that extended for meters did not leave any visible evidence when uncovered. This led many to view the subterranean realm with suspicion. Nutrition was incorporated. Development emerged. It was believed that the specifics between those 2 points would be simple, or at least unimportant. At the turn of the 20th century, that premise started to crumble. A German agronomist by the name of German agronomist Hiltner subtly altered the conversation in 1908. The rhizosphere, which he defined as the little area of soil where foraging structures have the most impact, is what he said. Foraging structures actively affect their immediate environment, altering chemistry, microbial populations, and nutrient availability, according to Hiltner, who claimed that soil is not uniform and inert. There was a change, and it was slight but significant. According to the rhizosphere, foraging structures do not merely absorb soil conditions. As such, they took part. They let out chemicals. Some microorganisms were drawn to them. Gradients and niches were formed by them. When compared to soil at a greater distance, soil close to foraging structures exhibited distinct behavior. Initially, not many people were interested in this concept. There was still no means to investigate it thoroughly. However, the picture got more difficult to disregard as microbiology progressed. Scientists started to discover that even 1 gram of good soil might harbor millions of kinds of microbial community. Soil was actually one of the planet's most biologically packed ecosystems. Far from being dead dirt, nutrients cycle through numerous creatures before reaching a tree root. As soil ecologists began to unearth intricate food webs under subsurface forest floor, bacteria feed on root exudates, fungi develop alliances with plants, protozoa graze on microbial community, nematodes regulate populations, and so on. The subterranean woodland was complex. It was bustling with activity, full with people. However, it was not immediately apparent how this intricacy related to actions at subsurface forest level. Knowing that bacteria exist is one thing, but it's a different ballgame to figure out how their interconnections affect drought resistance, growth patterns, and disturbance recovery at a larger scale. A readiness to conceive in systems rather than parts, meticulous measurement, and long-term studies are all necessary for that type of connection. In order to study forests across decades instead of seasons, organizations like the US Forest Service started funding ecological research sites that could run continuously. Something significant was uncovered by these investigations. The behavior of forests differed between areas with extensively disturbed soil and those with intact soil communities. Growth was more consistent over time, nutrient cycles were more regular, and stress recovery was quicker. It was still hard to picture what was going on below Earth. Soil networks defy easy depiction in satellite imagery, in contrast to canopies. What is often lost in clarity is what is gained in detail. Fragmented data is received. Samples differ greatly depending on where you are. Patient investigation and meticulous accumulation are prerequisites for the emergence of patterns. A psychological component is also present. People are primarily visual beings. In many cases, the unseen is underappreciated. A majestic tree exudes an air of importance. Fungi that resemble threads do not. Realizing the second option might be more productive than the first requires some mental effort. It is for this reason that soil science occasionally employs subtle humor. According to a research joke, the most significant aspect of a forest is the one that goes unnoticed. Because it's true, it's humorous. Subterranean forests don't promote themselves. First impressions are not favorable. It humbly performs the operations that enable the aforementioned. The traditional view of soil as an inert substrate became more and more problematic as more and more evidence emerged to the contrary. Nutrients weren't being drawn from a static reservoir by the foraging structures. They were engaging with a system that was alive and well. The presence of microbial community was not incidental. Availability, flow, and feedback were all actively shaped by them. This new perspective puts our previous lack of knowledge in a more positive context. Subterranean networks were not disregarded by scientists due to their perceived insignificance. Because they were difficult, they paid them no mind. Simplicity was not demonstrated by the lack of specific expertise. It proved that there were limits. The narrative shifts after that constraint is recognized. Rather than being an afterthought, the underworld takes center stage, meeting spot for establishing and maintaining relationships, as well as for exchanging information and negotiating the use of resources. Subsurface forest starts to take on the appearance of a layered system, with the majority of its coordination occurring behind the scenes, rather than a random assortment of trunks coexisting. There is no secret brain or command center hidden beneath subsurface forest floor. It uncovers a more intriguing fact. A subsurface forest's behavior is influenced by a complex network of interactions, each of which is rather small. Therefore, why didn't scientists notice it sooner is no longer an issue. Now we have to wonder how much subsurface forest's seeming intelligence is based on what has been going on beneath the surface the whole time. It is easy to overlook foraging structures. They remain unseen, unassuming, and unappreciated. Typically, people picture them as utilitarian objects, like drinking straws or anchors, used to prop up nodes and extract water from the ground. That image is neat and nearly completely inaccurate. By no means is a root system dormant. It is always taking samples of its environment, reacting to minute changes and modifying its development appropriately. Foraging structures are interfaces that are rich in information from a biological perspective. They take in a lot more than just water and nutrients because they're on the plant's periphery. They get information. Foraging structures respond to wetness as one of its most fundamental signals. The soil's moisture content varies. Even after it rains, the water doesn't go anywhere uniformly. It soaks up particles, collects in pores, and then drains away in microscopic channels. Foraging structures are able to sense these variations. Growth patterns change when different sections of a root system experience somewhat different levels of moisture. Sideways cell elongation is greater than sideways elongation. Gradually but surely, the root curves toward the moister area. Hydrotropism is the name given to this behavior. Neither decision-making nor contemplation are required. When water becomes more or less available, It changes the chemical balance and pressure inside cells. Their effects on cell growth are altered. The result is directional growth in the long run. Unaware of its own actions, the root follows the signal. Similar patterns are created by nutrients. The distribution of essential elements like potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen in soil is not uniform. Foraging structures have chemical receptors built into their cell membranes that allow them to sense variations in concentration. Foraging structures increase their surface area by aggressively branching when resources are low. An area experiences a concentration of growth when its nutrition levels are high. This has been shown experimentally with glaring clarity. Researchers have found that foraging structures will continue to grow toward nutrition sources, even when physical contact is blocked. But chemicals can get through soil barriers. Removing nutrients causes growth to slow down. Restoring them allows growth to resume. Accurate, repeatable, and fine-tuned is the reaction. Other creatures can also trigger a response in foraging structures through chemical signals. A soil sample might reveal a lot. Compounds released by nearby plants, fungus, and bacteria indicate presence, stress, or opportunity. These signals can be picked up by foraging structures, which can then change their behavior. Sometimes they stay away from areas where dangerous bacteria are active. In some, they develop into helpful allies. Plant hormones play a mediating role in this sensitivity by regulating development and growth. The role of auxins in controlling root development is crucial. Cell elongation causes curvature when auxin concentrations are unequal across a root tip. Cytokinins have an effect on branching, which means they promote the development of new root tips when circumstances are right. They are part of a network of hormones that regulates the body's response to stimuli in the environment. The level of granularity in this system is astounding. Minuscule variations in nutrient concentration can be detected by root tips, which are only millimeters in length. Their ability to react to impediments allows them to reroute growth away from stones or compacted dirt. Depending on the circumstances, they can either accelerate, decelerate, or even change their course completely. Foraging structures may be able to sense the vibrations of water's sound, according to some research. Foraging structures expanded in response to low-frequency noises emitted by speakers in controlled trials, which simulated the sound of water seeping through dirt. The process is still up for discussion, but the consequence is obvious. Chemicals aren't the only thing that can affect foraging structures. They are also sensitive to bodily signals. The term decision-making sounds appealing. This language can deceive, but it seems like foraging structures are choosing courses, avoiding hazards, and seeking resources. These answers are not based on any kind of inward experience, not knowing what more is out there. The result of numerous interdependent processes controlled by chemistry and physics is what appears to be choice. Being conscious is not necessary for sensing. While a thermostat reads the temperature, a smoke detector reads the presence of smoke. No one has a clue as to what it is picking up. Foraging structures function similarly, albeit with somewhat more intricacy. They have molecular sensors. They take a long time to reply. Instead of having a central CPU, their logic is spread out over millions of cells. Behavior is not trivial, just because one is unaware of it. Actually, that just adds to its impressiveness. Absent a central neural system, foraging structures are able to simultaneously integrate several impulses. At the same time, growth is affected by factors such as nutrition, toxins, physical obstacles, microbial activity, and hormonal feedback. All of these inputs work together to produce this pattern. As time goes on, this causes root structures to seem to be perfectly suited to their surroundings. Root systems extend out in dry soils to make the most of the limited water supply. They focus growth where it will yield the most rewards in areas rich in nutrients. Without vision or foreknowledge, foraging structures navigate complex physical terrain by exploiting fissures and pores in compacted soils. It has been observed in numerous plant species that they are quite adaptable. Researchers in the agricultural sector have looked into crop foraging structures as a potential way to increase harvests in dry years. Foraging structures in woods in different climates have been studied by ecologists. Time and again, the same concepts crop up. On a micro level, foraging structures react. A worldwide structure is emerging. Noting that foraging structures are not discrete entities is equally critical. The propagation of signals from one area of the root system to another is possible. A plant's shoot development can be influenced by hormones that are released at the root tip. Root behavior can be changed by signals sent downhill from leaves in response to light or damage. Data travels in both directions. The boundary between sensing and coordinating is further blurred by this internal communication. Nutrients may cause a root to send more leaves up into the air, which increases sugar production and allows the root to spread even more. Perception and response are interconnected throughout an organism, through feedback loops. Nothing here necessitates thinking, though. All it takes is some time, some feedback, and some sensitivity. Not because foraging structures comprehend information, but because they alter their behavior in response to it. The concept of information collecting is applicable here. They keep track of distinctions. They use chemical gradients to encode those differences. Upon them, they act. This is why conversations about plant biology will sometimes include light-hearted banter. One definition of foraging structures is the ability to know where to plant seeds, even when all parties involved are fully aware that they know very little. This is merely a slang term and not an assertion. Not awareness, but effectiveness. Perspectivism is altered upon realizing origins as data collectors. These are no longer used as a necessary evil. They are dynamic interfaces that are always navigating a complicated environment. The entire plant is impacted by their signal collection, response integration, and growth pattern shaping abilities. The magnitude of the problem becomes apparent when applied to a forest with thousands of nodes. The local circumstances are being sampled by each tree. There are a lot of root systems that are reacting to chemical signals, nutritional signals, and water. All of subsurface forests' reactions blend together to form a mosaic. Interactions between individual nodes are not the starting point for the level of coordination seen in a forest. As a first step, foraging structures carry on as usual, information gathering, in response, making necessary adjustments. Interactions between more than just nodes will be feasible after that groundwork is laid. Foraging structures engage in more than simply soil interactions. Within it, they engage with living things. It is in these exchanges that subsurface forests' bigger, interrelated nature starts to emerge. Deep in the earth, entwined with foraging structures and laced with dirt, resides a companion that the majority of nodes have never known without. It can't use sunlight to produce food. It has no wood or leaf-producing capabilities. But forests, as we know them today, would be nearly impossible to sustain without it. Fungi that form mycorrhiza are these pastures. Despite the complex-seeming name, the connection is straightforward. In this mutualistic relationship, fungi cling to plant foraging structures, and the plant gives the fungus carbohydrates produced by photosynthesis. Fungi allow soil-dwelling organisms to get water and nutrients. Trade has been going on for a very long time, hundreds of millions of years, even before forests looked the way they do today. Theoretically, fungal alliances may have been crucial to the survival of some of the first land-dwelling plants. The soil was quite thin, dietary nutrients were uneven, ancestry was simple. Fungi bridged the gap, allowing the first plants to spread deeper into the soil and eventually establish life on land. From a basic requirement, it evolved into a system of supports. In this collaboration, fungal hyphae play a crucial role. These minuscule threads are far thinner than plant foraging structures and can squeeze into spaces in the dirt that the foraging structures can't reach. A root could be several millimeters thick, whereas a hyphae could be as little as a few micrometers. That distinction is significant. As a result, fungi are able to penetrate much deeper into soil than would be possible with just their foraging structures. In order to build a dense mesh, hyphae of a fungal association extend outward in all directions. Looking at it from the tree's point of view, it seems like its root system has grown exponentially. The fungal network is responsible for absorbing and returning nutrients to the plant, including phosphorus, nitrogen, and trace minerals. Additionally, nodes can be protected from dry circumstances by having water carried via these threads. This extension is not on a small scale. Fungal hyphae, according to research, can multiply a root system's effective absorptive surface area by several orders of magnitude. A 10% increase in reach is not implied by this. At other times, it can imply 10 times as much, or even more. It is not only the foraging structures that interact with the soil, it is the root and fungal network that does the actual work. Fungal network come in many varieties, each with its own unique kind of association, forming sheaths. Some encircle foraging structures. Some construct complex exchange arrangements by penetrating root cells. Different types are better suited to specific habitats and kinds of plants. Multiple mycorrhizal methods coexist in many forests. Fungal networks do not always adhere to the limits that people anticipate, which adds an intriguing dimension to this system. It is not uncommon for a single fungal individual to form connections with numerous nodes, even of different species. Fungal partners change, depending on factors like availability, demand, and compatibility. They are not faithful to any one partner. When it was initially carefully considered, this notion caused some to raise their eyebrows. There was a long-held belief that nodes were mostly unrelated to one another in terms of their fungus companions. A more complex picture, however, developed as scientists started to trace fungal networks with the use of genetic markers and isotope labeling. Source Tree, a forest ecologist whose research focused on the interdependence of nodes via their common mycorrhizal networks, is one of the experts whose work contributed to popularizing this concept. According to her findings, these fungal pathways could facilitate the transfer of carbon from one tree to another, especially between older, more established nodes and their younger counterparts. The results of this study did not prove that nodes were intentionally cooperating. The fact that fungal networks actually form physical links that allow resources to flow was instead exposed. Movement is possible when there is an excess in one area of the network and a demand in another. In response to metabolic cues and chemical gradients, the fungus acts as a mediator of the exchange. Subsurface forest is perceived differently as a result of this type of link. Nodes are no longer seen as discrete rivals vying for limited real estate. Connected by creatures that are often unseen, they resemble nodes in a web. Subsurface forest floor transforms from a root battleground into a highly networked terrain. It is crucial to note that these networks are dynamic. Through expansion, contraction, breakage, and reformation, they undergo several changes. The upheaval changes them. Growth generates new connections. Temporary ties degrade. Rebuilding the fungal web is an ongoing process that occurs in response to both surface and subsurface changes. Because the image is so unexpected, descriptions of these systems occasionally include gentle humor. Subtle threads of unity emerge from a woodland that appears calm and undulating at first glance. You can't capture this kind of bond in a snapshot. It calls for a change of perspective. Additionally, a novel metric is introduced by the fungal network. By taking up nutrients, molecule by molecule, individual hyphae adapt to their immediate surroundings. When taken as a whole, the network can cover distances of kilometers. Forest dynamics at the macro level are connected to microscale chemistry. The system's strength lies in its multi-layer design. Simple concepts of ownership are further complicated. Identifying the precise tree to which nutrients belong gets more difficult as they travel via a shared network. The flow of resources, from soil to foraging structures to trunks, is not always linear. Conditions determine whether they circulate, pool, or disperse. This distribution is somewhat limited. It works well. In order to ensure their own life, fungi use resources in certain ways. Nutrients are more abundantly received by nodes that produce more sugars. Less water may reach stressed nodes. Kindness is not a factor in the network's response. Incentives are. Those differences are important. This helps to ground the story. Underneath subsurface forest bottom, there is no concealed morality. There is a framework, comments, and bargaining. Because cooperation is effective in this setting, the subsequent behavior may appear cooperative. When looking at the system as a whole, the fungal network serves as the framework. Information and resources can transcend geographical boundaries thanks to this tangible medium. If it weren't there, nodes couldn't reach beyond their immediate vicinity. It brings subsurface forest into harmony with itself. The subsurface forest is not given instructions by this infrastructure. It can't make plans or provide orders. It only makes communication possible. Coordination can evolve organically once interaction is feasible at a large enough scale. By presenting the fungal network in this light, we can better understand it, but the mystique remains. There is no communal decision-making or whispering going on in subsurface forest. Everything changes when things are connected. Fungal network provide the framework for forest-wide behavior by increasing reach, connecting people, and facilitating the movement of resources through shared pathways. They set the stage for situations when local actions might have far-off results. The next question is bound to arise once that physical network is in place. What exactly travels along the connections between nodes and fungi? At this point, the plot takes on a far more tangible quality. When fungal networks are established, subsurface forest acquires an advantage it lacked previously, a means for resources to transcend the boundaries of individual foraging structures. What moves via these subterranean passages is not some enigmatic force or purpose, but rather commonplace materials that are subtly but effectively transported. Carbon plays a vital role in this interaction. Photosynthesis is the process by which nodes convert carbon dioxide into sugars by absorbing light energy from the sun. Subsurface forest's principal currency is these sugars. They make it possible to grow, fix, reproduce, and protect. Not all of a tree's sugars end up in the tree's trunk or leaves. Send it tumbling. Nodes send sugars into the soil through their foraging structures, which mycorrhizal fungus then absorb. In exchange, fungi supply minerals that foraging structures would have a hard time acquiring otherwise. An important example is phosphorus. Because of its strong binding affinity for soil particles, it flows slowly through the earth. It is much more efficiently collected by fungal hyphae due to their large surface area and short reach. Trace elements and nitrogen take comparable routes. This trade has no symbolic value. Measurable it is. Researchers in the field of forest ecology have discovered that nodes can actually share some of their photosynthetic energy with fungi. It is possible for fungal networks to absorb up to 20% of a tree's carbon fixation in some ecosystems. Certainly, that is an important contribution, a financial commitment. Scientists required a means of monitoring its movement in order to deduce its final destination. In this regard, isotope tracing has proven to be an invaluable tool. There are several isotopes of carbon, which are chemically very similar, yet can be distinguished by mass alone. To track the movement of carbon as it passes through a forest, scientists inject nodes with carbon dioxide that contains a rare isotope. Impressive outcomes have been achieved by these experiments. Fungal tissues attached to a tree's foraging structures can eventually detect carbon that was injected into the tree's leaves. It then spreads to nearby nodes, especially those that are infested by the same kind of fungus. Instead of hopping from one place to another, the carbon flows steadily down actual channels. The opposite direction of nutrients movement has also been traced using similar methods. Fungi can absorb minerals, and then hours or days later, those minerals can be found in tree tissues. Depending on the circumstances, these flows might be either little or large in size. As a tree's sugar production drops due to shade, carbon tends to move toward it. A tree's role changes from sink to source when it's exposed to plenty of light and experiencing rapid growth. Although this pattern has been metaphorically compared to nodes lending a hand to one another, the actual process is far more straightforward and consistent than altruism. Gradients are the basis for movement. Flow moves away from regions of high concentration and toward regions of low concentration. Uptake rises in response to rising demand. In response to these chemical variations, the fungus network operates autonomously. The fungi themselves are involved in controlling these interactions. They are not just carrying things along. They prioritize collaborating with companies that produce more carbon. In order to redistribute resources to hosts that are more productive, fungi can decrease nutrient delivery to plants that supply less sugars. According to experiments, this action may provide the impression of selection, but it does not need making a choice. It develops as a result of metabolic processes feeding off of one another. As a result, subsurface forest is more likely to remain stable thanks to the system's resource distribution. The odds of survival for young seedlings are increased when they grow under the shade of bigger nodes because they often get carbon through shared networks. More help may be given to stressed nodes when the weather permits. Resources were more widely dispersed when there was an abundance of them. Meanwhile, there is no equity in the system. With time, we may prune out nodes that don't add much. Because of their focus on self-preservation, fungi tend to encourage transactions that maintain network productivity. Balance, not justice, is the source of stability. Measurable outcomes result from this equilibrium. Growth patterns are more uniform across individuals in forests, where fungal networks are intact. The availability of nutrients is less variable. There is less turbulence during recovery. Disruptions to networks lead to an uneven distribution of resources and an increase in vulnerability. Delays are also introduced by the flow of nutrients along fungal routes. The amount of carbon that is fixed today can affect growth in a few weeks or months. Fungal tissues have the ability to release nutrients over time. By reducing the impact of extremes, such delays keep the system from being unsettled by unexpected shortages or surpluses. Looking at it from a systemic viewpoint, this is strikingly similar to a distribution network. Multiple entry points allow inputs. When required, outputs appear. Flow changes on the fly according to specific regional circumstances. It is not necessary for any component to comprehend the entire system. Gradients and feedback are all it needs to function. This has an air of subtle elegance. Physics and chemistry, rather than crucial central planning, are the basis of subsurface forest. It relies on metabolic exchange, diffusion, and transport, rather than instructions. The intricacy is not due to convoluted regulations, but rather to the interplay of numerous straightforward procedures. When scientists explain this, they may utilize subtle humor, since the theory goes against what people assume. Saying that a forest functions like a supply chain is an unusual concept, but it really works. 4 processes take place: production, transportation, allocation, and storage. Congestion is important. Problems spread. Resilience is impacted by efficiency. Intent is something that subsurface forest is lacking. Assisting a neighbor is not a choice. Will not be getting ready for winter. Structure molded by a long evolutionary history gives rise to the apparent foresight. Effective resource distribution systems endured. A lot of them died out. This sheds light on the mystery of how forest activity can give the impression of intelligence, even when no cognition is involved. At the right times and in the right places, the network transports what is required. The result is adaptive, not because subsurface forest possesses any special intelligence, but rather because the principles it adheres to are effective. These interactions thread subsurface forest together as they go on year after year. Nodes continue to have independent lives. Their life cycle consists of proliferation, competition, and eventual demise. However, their destinies are intricately linked by the movement of resources. When resources can be transferred through common channels, stability can be achieved on a grander scale than any one organism. Abundance in one place might mitigate the effects of disturbances in another. Adverse events do not happen in a vacuum. Both it and support can spread. The ability to redistribute resources is a subtle but crucial component of a resilient forest. There will still be losses, survivability is not assured. However, it delays things and mitigates excesses. Time is of the essence in intricate systems. The subterranean network expands the definition of a forest by acting as a distribution system instead of a patchwork of individual conduits. This enables regional actions to have far-reaching consequences. The result is something greater than the sum of its components. When assets start flowing in this direction, it's inevitable that something else will follow. Emergence of response patterns is contingent upon distribution's ability to stabilize subsurface forest. Subsurface forest begins to act rather than merely respond. There, stability starts to take form. Danger is not a constant presence in a plant's environment. A drought develops gradually. Bugs show up in swarms. Invaders work their way through tissues one cell at a time. Early diagnosis and prompt response are crucial for plant life because none of these things can be avoided. They accomplish this by using signals. These signals do not go by nerves' electrical currents, but rather through soil, air, and living tissue in the form of chemicals. There is chemical information surrounding every cell in a plant. As a result, concentrations fluctuate, particles emerge, vanish, and interact with one another. These alterations are significant to plants. They signify harm, shortage, rivalry, or possibility. Changes in the environment cause chemical changes, which plants adapt to. When it comes to signaling, stress is a major factor. Insect bites cause rapid chemical changes in the cells at the wound site of a wounded leaf. Proteins, known as enzymes, catalyze reactions. Medicinal chemicals are manufactured. We release hormones. These signals are dispersed. They embark on a journey. Chemical messengers travel through the plant's vascular tissue to notify faraway leaves of an issue. Their cell walls may thicken. They may create bitter substances, or the levels of toxins may increase, making those leaves less appetizing. This takes place prior to the arrival of the bug. Duplicate consumption of the plant is possible. Signals are released into the air outside the plant. Leaves lose their volatile organic chemical concentrations when exposed to these tiny molecules, which evaporate quickly. They reveal the nature of the stress that the plant is going through. Chemical fingerprints are unique to each assailant. Unlike fungal infections or mechanical damage, eating insects cause a distinct mix. These messages in the air don't stay around for very long. However, they are significant so long as they remain. When exposed to them, neighboring plants frequently exhibit behavioral changes. As a result, leaves could secrete additional poisons. Trends in growth could change. After being exposed, some plants even change when they bloom or how they distribute their resources. Research in both the lab and the outdoors has shown this phenomena time and time again. Plants seem to be more resilient to subsequent attacks when they are exposed to air from nearby injured neighbors. Their immunity is not conferred by the signal. In doing so, it readies them. As humans, we might be tempted to call this a warning or a message. It seems like plants are communicating with each other, yet there is no intentional message being delivered. In its own defense mechanism, the injured plant responds by releasing chemicals. Because such substances have an effect on the neighbor's own chemistry, they react. coordination happens accidentally. Similar exchanges take place underground with foraging structures. Many different compounds, such as sugars, amino acids, and signaling molecules, are released into the soil by plants. These secretions from the foraging structures have an effect on the populations of microbial community, draw in helpful allies, and even drive out rivals. Soil is more than simply a medium. It's a platform for messages. The composition of root exudates can change when plants undergo nutritional stress. This changes the local microbe population, which in turn changes the availability of nutrients. When one plant undergoes a change, it might cause nearby plants to react by altering their own growth or chemistry. Recognizing relatives also involves chemical signaling. Research indicates that plants may be able to differentiate between foraging structures of the same species and those of different species, allowing them to adjust their competing strategies appropriately. This is a chemical, not a mental, process. Indications come from minor variations in exudates and absorption patterns. The lightning-fast response time of plant communication is truly remarkable. Though they travel far more slowly than electrical impulses in animal nerves, electrical signals do in fact exist in plants and do travel across vascular tissue and membranes. Chemical cascades are frequently set off by these electrical changes, which enhance the reaction. Some plants may begin to adapt, even in the early minutes after harm has occurred. Chemical signaling aids in population response coordination at bigger scales. Forests, for instance, can exhibit extensive increases in defensive chemicals during insect outbreaks, even in nodes that have not been attacked yet. More quickly than physical harm could ever spread, information might be conveyed by airborne signals and shared fungal networks. Investigators into these mechanisms have identified certain chemicals, like salicylates and jasminates, that play a role in signaling. These compounds mediate compromises between development and protection and control pathways of defense. It takes energy to make poisons. Biological signals tell plants when it's worthwhile to incur that expense. Something must be stressed. This is not happening. In a fully sentient way, plants are not deciphering signals. There is no comprehension of significance, no warning of impending harm. Molecules bind to chemical receptors. Reactions are set off via binding. Reactions influence actions. There you have it, the full chain. The explanation remains grounded because of this distinction. Eliminating the need for interpretation makes signaling both more comprehensible and more stunning. Even without brains, plants are able to process data from various sources and react appropriately depending on the situation. Because the behavior seems so familiar, talks of plant communication can occasionally slip into gentle humor. Gets ready to launch an assault. Interaction between foraging structures and microorganisms. Adjacent residents reacting to hidden signals. It seems like conversation, but it's totally mechanical, in a way that defies simple classification. Subsurface forest seems to be alive, a second level of coordination, beyond the transfer of resources, is introduced by chemical signals as well. What is available can be answered by looking at resources. What is happening can be answered by signals. All of them work together to make subsurface forest react to both the present and future. Under conditions of widespread stress, this ability becomes paramount significance. Consider how entire regions are impacted by drought. Many people's stomatal behavior, transpiration, and development patterns can be influenced by chemical signals associated with water stress. The reaction was spontaneous, yet it makes sense. The molecules involved in these interactions have been meticulously catalogued for years by researchers from organizations like the Max Planck Institute for Chemical Ecology. Researchers have shown that, despite fundamental differences in mechanism, plant signaling networks are just as complicated as animal ones. Interaction is what makes complexity possible. not neurons. The price tag is another critical part of chemical signaling. It takes resources to produce and release chemicals. It is not sustainable for plants to signal continuously. Signals are controlled, fleeting, and situational. That way, replies won't be too proportionate. Feedback is introduced by this rule. Overly forceful signaling can cause a plant to lose vitality and not grow well. One that doesn't signal enough could end up hurt. Balanced reactions are favored by evolutionary pressure over time. A tuning process occurs in the signaling system. This accumulation of individual tuning decisions occurs at subsurface forest level. Even though signals are dispersed and reactions are diverse, patterns do develop. A changing mosaic of actions that mirrors changes in the environment, with heightened defenses in certain areas and stunted growth in others. A deluge of data, rather than a discussion, emerges. Chemical reactions encode states. It conveys danger, plenty, and stress. Persistence is enhanced for plants with the ability to read and react to that situation. Some people just can't let themselves lag behind. The last obstacle to comprehending forest cooperation can be lowered by viewing chemical communication in this manner. The system's adaptability improves once data can travel apart from physical resources. Aside from reacting, it can also predict. Adjustments can be made before damage spreads. Awareness is not necessary for any of this. Comprehending any of it is not necessary. Yet, on a scale much greater than that of a single plant, adaptive behavior results. The woodland is clueless about what's going on. It is unnecessary. The knowing is done by chemistry. Whatever else needs doing, interaction takes care of. Coordination is inevitable when information flow and resource flow are both functioning simultaneously. Although it is not subsurface forest's intention, it is made possible by the structure. The concept of mindless behavior becomes more acceptable after that. I was expecting it. A common narrative typically develops when individuals initially hear about subterranean networks and shared resources, interdependent nodes. Established nodes provide support for their younger counterparts. A forest that is kind and attentive. It is a visually beautiful and easily comprehensible image. The human brain excels at deciphering seemingly cooperative patterns as expressions of hidden intentions. But kindness is not the fuel that drives nature. There is no intrinsic motivation for forests to work together. Cooperation is effective when the circumstances are correct, so they work together. Although it's hard to notice, the change is significant. As a result, the explanation remains based on biology rather than emotion, and the whole intricacy of forest behavior is shown. Cooperation does not necessitate empathy from an evolutionary perspective. It necessitates benefit. Interactions that make people more likely to stick around for a while usually stick around for a while. If it doesn't, it eventually fades. There is no moral evaluation taking place. Survival, rather than intention, determines outcomes. The strength of this principle's applicability to networks is comparable to that to individuals. When nodes in a forest take part in efficient underground trades, their growth is more consistent. They are able to obtain nutrients that would have been inaccessible to them before. Environmental fluctuations are mitigated by their ability to adapt. These benefits determine which techniques endure across many generations. To fungus, the reasoning is identical. Networks of fungal network are not non-profits. At their core, they are businesses. In order to produce carbon, fungi trade, nutrients. Partners that deliver a consistent return get their resources first. The fungus adjusts its behavior when a tree stops contributing as much. The exchange is governed by efficiency rather than empathy. Mutualism is a common way to characterize this kind of relationship. Even though they both stand to gain, neither partner acts altruistically toward the other. Every one of them reacts to chemical and metabolic cues. The dynamic changes as the equilibrium changes. There are several instances of this type of cooperation that does not include altruism in evolutionary biology. As a bonus to their food supply, cleaner fish help larger fish by removing parasites. Both sides are confused about the deal, and the reason it's still around is that it's effective. As they feed on nectar, insects pollinate flowers. Again, without remorse or consciousness, profit flows in both directions. Forests take this reasoning to a whole new level. A network of dozens or millions of organisms communicates with one another rather than just two. The end outcome is coordinated activity that is really the product of innumerable smaller exchanges. Due to the fact that stable systems tend to endure longer, natural selection may actually encourage this type of stability at the network level. It is more probable that a forest will withstand droughts, pests, and disturbances if its resources are distributed correctly. For nodes and the fungi that sustain them, this means reproducing over very long periods of time. Subsurface forest is not actively seeking peace in this case. Resilience is being prioritized. Systems that fail when pressured vanish. Structural shock-absorbing systems endure. One method of shock absorption is cooperation, provided that it increases efficiency. Although it is more correct, efficiency is a more subdued term than kindness. Subterranean networks lessen redundant processes. The edges are softened. As a result, an overabundance in one area can compensate for a deficit in another. Waste is minimized. Rather than being moral qualities, these serve a practical purpose. The growth of forests is more uniform and more resistant to stress when the mycorrhizal networks are intact, according to the research. Even if some nodes manage to withstand a disruption to those networks, the system as a whole becomes far more vulnerable. Rises in variability. Improvement becomes less rapid. The results do not prove that the nodes were cooperating. So far as they are concerned, the framework that allowed for cooperation has been dismantled. Recognizing that cooperation is never absolute is also crucial. Some nodes are more fortunate than others. Conversations aren't always encouraging. For certain plants, the benefits outweigh the costs. Lots of people are left out. Mycelia change allegiances. Foraging structures fight for little room. Conflict and cooperation coexist. The two do not exist in isolation. It is characteristic of natural systems for these things to coexist. Unadulterated rivalry is precarious. Complete collaboration is not feasible. Between these two extremes is where real systems work, with relationships being renegotiated according to new circumstances. A forest is just like any other. Realizing how unromantic this is can sometimes lead to gentle humor. It is reassuring to think of nodes as kind neighbors. Though less lyrical, the fact that they are effective players in an economy controlled by chemicals is quite fascinating. Moral language is removed, making subsurface forest more understandable. Things that nodes don't like. Evolution has shaped the rules that they are obeying. Fungi aren't doing their part to help. Their primary concern is ensuring their own existence. Because cooperation is an inevitable outcome of those rules, the system acts cooperatively. This viewpoint also keeps one from being let down. Forests don't feel betrayed when they don't protect weaker people, or when resource distribution looks unfair. In a sense, it's just biology acting naturally. Systems prioritize durability over equity. Cooperation retains its relevance when understood in this manner. On the contrary, it amplifies its impressiveness. Intention, planning, and awareness aren't always necessary for forests to achieve results that are difficult for human systems to imitate. Consistency devoid of initiative, collaboration without delegation, evolution without planning forward. Simultaneously, this comprehension maintains reasonable expectations. There are bounds to cooperation. Networks are vulnerable to disruptions caused by sudden changes in variables. Collapse can occur when the stress is greater than the capacity of the buffers. A guarantee is not necessarily cooperation. It is a propensity, molded by limitations. What follows is laid out by this well-rounded perspective. Assuming woods cooperate without being selfless, It follows that they compete without being malicious. The laws that regulate the free flow of resources also have the power to limit that flow. Not only can networks stabilize, but they may also exclude. Subsurface forest does not grow colder as kindness is stripped away. This gets more apparent. Interaction, feedback, and the will to survive are the driving forces in the remaining system. Cooperation is a tactic, not an emotion, in this system. When seen in that light, competition ceases to seem paradoxical, and cooperation becomes clear. This feels like the inverse of the first. Collaboration is always at work, even on subsurface forest floor. As with any two-way street or two-way trade, there is also rivalry, not much room. Differences in nutrients are noticeable. Easy access is important. The subterranean realm is a crystal clear reflection of this truth. First and foremost, foraging structures compete for space. Soil is actually a complex network of pores, fissures, and compacted zones beneath the surface, despite how uniform it appears from above. Root growth and water flow are both governed by these gaps. One root system physically blocks off other root systems when it grows into a beneficial root. Denial of growth in one direction is a common consequence of growth in one direction. This rivalry is peaceful. Both attackers and defenders are absent. It follows naturally from geometric principles. There can't be two foraging structures at one spot. They constantly react to physical limitation by navigating around one another, sometimes receding and other times thrusting forward. The competitiveness is heightened by nutrients. It is unusual for soil to have a uniform distribution of nutrients, like nitrogen and phosphorus. Decomposition of organic materials or microbial activity releases them, causing them to form pockets. The first foraging structures to reach these pockets will have a leg up. They eat everything in their path, leaving less for other animals in the area. Such stresses are experienced by fungi as well. The availability of resources is a limitation of fungal networks, even though they can connect numerous nodes. Carbon is essential for the growth and maintenance of hyphae. A reduction in carbon supply causes certain nodes in the network to retract or turn off. Links become less strong. Goals change. This results in compromises. In order to become more resilient, a fungal network needs more partners, which in turn increases demand. The network loses efficiency when an excessive number of partners with little to no contribution drain resources. As a result, fungi tend to direct their growth toward more lucrative locations. Reducing or removing less productive linkages is an option. It appears like this is a case of selective cooperation from the outside. Chemical rivalry is the internal manifestation. The most efficient utilization of resources attracts more of those resources. Other regions get less funding. No value judgments are being made. One limitation only. Cooperation and competition are not mutually exclusive. As ecological theory has long acknowledged, their paths cross. According to theoretical ecology models, systems that incorporate both dynamics generally function better than those that solely rely on one. Stability is the result of unbridled competition. Completely open collaboration leaves one exposed. Stability breeds tenacity. The concept of trade-offs can help with this. While sharing helps stabilize a system, it can also lessen incentive if done excessively. Too much exclusion causes the network to become fragmented, even though it can safeguard resources. Forests are always shifting their equilibrium to find the sweet spot where they can thrive. Division is also driven by competition. In the face of severe competition, foraging structures may dig deeper and extend laterally instead of horizontally. Still others could focus on the lower strata that are more prone to organic waste buildup. As a group, fungi are very diverse, with several species filling specific roles. There is less direct conflict and more overall efficiency as a result of this difference. Rather from weakening organization, competition helps it flourish in this way. It boosts the system's functional diversity by forcing organisms to use diverse tactics. Resilience is bolstered by diversity. People often assume that in order for intelligent behavior to occur, all of its components must be in perfect harmony and willing to work together. The inverse is frequently the case in natural systems. Tension, limitations that demand efficiency, and constraints that compel adaptation are the incubators of intelligence. Subsurface forest would be precariously balanced if each tree had equal access to all resources. All would be equally impacted by a drought. A disease could spread uncontrolled. Inequitable responses are a result of access variation that is influenced by competition. Every tree has its ups and downs. Something keeps the system running. When seen via a human lens, this unevenness can appear particularly severe. From the point of view of the system, though, it provides protection. Competition ensures that not everyone will fail. It slows collapse by introducing friction. Fungal networks are no different. Fungi avoid waste by distributing resources judiciously. So that carbon is not wasted on pointless connections, they implement these measures. This overall network stability is achieved by this selectivity. Occasionally, ecologists will characterize this process with a touch of gentle humor. It is common to picture a cooperative and pleasant underground community. The truth is that it's hectic, congested, and cutthroat. This seems more like a bustling marketplace than a peaceful garden. It is important to note that shared systems do not disappear because of competition. Networks can still be reached through roots. Plants are still connected by fungi. However, continuous negotiation shapes these ties. They excel in what they do and struggle in what they don't. Patterns that appear intentional are the result of this continual modification. In productive zones, resources tend to congregate. Favorable pathways are favored by growth. Tranquility is reduced, but not eradicated. Despite the lack of leadership, subsurface forest acts as though it is optimizing. Realizing this avoids simplistic perspectives on harmony. There is no such thing as ideal cooperation in a forest. Multiple, sometimes conflicting, needs are met by this system. The absence of conflict is not the cause of stability. Rather, its regulation is. A new question arises when the importance of rivalry in underground dynamics is recognized. What stops either collaboration or competition from becoming the only option if they coexist? What prevents the system from becoming completely stagnant or chaotic? Mechanisms that react to imbalance and drive the system back toward functional states are the key to regulation and feedback. It is at that point when subsurface forest's apparent intelligence really shines. When cooperation and rivalry are both present, another factor becomes crucial. One would inevitably come to dominate the other in the absence of regulation. Hoarding or excessive distribution of resources would occur. Either the rate of growth would skyrocket or it would stop altogether. Feedback helps forests stay away from both extremes. Among the central concepts in systems science is the idea of feedback loops. They define, at a basic level, cases where the result of a process affects the process itself. In response to its own actions, the system acts. That reaction might sometimes make things worse. Sometimes, it diminishes it. The system is not just aimlessly floating around, it responds. Feedback loop pioneers' contributions to the development of cybernetics in the early 20th century were crucial in formalizing this idea. Wiener pondered the question of how self-regulating systems function in the absence of a master controller. The question of how society, machinery, and even living things could maintain stability in the face of infinite change. Feedback came up as the solution time and time again. Forests are a great place to find feedback. A complex network of interconnected responses, rather than a singular mechanism, is at work here. Some move swiftly. Some of them take a long time to play out. They influence subsurface forests' behavior in the long run. The form of input most commonly linked to stability is negative feedback. It has the effect of reversing progress. When an increase becomes excessive, it is counteracted by negative feedback. As soon as something drops too low, the reaction pushes it back up. Nutrient uptake is a straightforward example. Accelerated growth, expanded leaves, and increased photosynthesis are all signs that a tree is experiencing an abundance of nutrients. Demand, however, rises in tandem with this quick expansion. Rapid nutrient depletion occurs. The rate of growth decreases as supply decreases. Its own constraint is set off by the initial growth. Similar loops are also engaged by soil microorganisms. Microbial community become more active as organic debris builds up. Elements are liberated. Vigorous growth is observed in plants. Microbial activity and nutrient release are both reduced as organic matter is digested over time. While the system does oscillate, it stays within manageable limits. The effect of positive criticism is distinct. In fact, it serves to amplify rather than resist change. Quick changes are common when a process starts, because good feedback keeps it going. Forests rarely see positive feedback, but when it does, it has the power to transform entire landscapes. An obvious illustration is fire. Tree cover is reduced by fire in arid regions. Soil dries up quicker, and temperatures rise when there are fewer nodes. Future fires are more likely to occur due to these factors. The likelihood of a subsequent fire grows with each passing one. As a result of this positive feedback, forests may enter totally new phases. Positive feedback is typically limited by negative feedback in other parts of the system to prevent runaway change. The composition of vegetation may change after multiple fires to favor less flammable species. Wetness absorption could be enhanced. Feedback becomes less robust, despite frequently starting from a different point. Balance returns. The interconnected feedback loops in forests operate at many scales, which contributes to their remarkable resilience. As soon as changes occur in the soil, root development begins. On a weekly or monthly basis, fungal networks rebalance their allotment of resources. With the passage of time, tree populations change. Every layer reacts to changes, yet no layer can operate independently. Think of carbon flow. More carbon is taken up when photosynthesis ramps up. Some is utilized for expansion. Some of it is kept. Fungal partners receive part of it. The intake of nutrients is enhanced by the larger fungal networks that are supported by increased carbon. Better nourishment enables more development. This input is positive. Simultaneously, growth drives up the demand for water. When water gets scarce, development slows down. Less carbon fuel is used. The activity of fungi changes. An inverse loop verifies the existence of the positive one. Nothing goes wrong with the system. There is no need to keep an eye on or prepare for these exchanges. They occur because physical constraints limit biological processes. Physical constraints include water supply, nutritional concentration, temperature, and energy equilibrium. They maintain control of the system through feedback. This may appear to be decision-making from the outside. Subsurface forest seems to have an innate sense of when to back down, recharge, and alter its approach. The truth is that it is reacting mechanically to new circumstances. Reliability of those answers gives the impression of intelligence. The fact that feedback is always at work is one of its many strengths. Information does not have to wait to reach a central authority. On a local level, changes are recognized and acted upon. The system is subsequently notified of that response. Forests are strong because they respond locally. An unstable whole is not instantly brought about by damage to a single part. A feedback loop is a shock absorber. Development trends change. Resources are reallocated. A new equilibrium is achieved by the system. Using subtle humor can at times make this concept more obvious. Forests do not get together to plot a course of action. Concerning the drought response, they abstain from voting. Repeatedly, they respond in ways that have been fine-tuned by evolution over millions of years. Why forest behavior can vary while still maintaining coherence is also explained by feedback. Compared to an older forest, a younger one acts differently. When compared to a stable forest, a healing forest exhibits distinct behavior. However, in every instance, the replies are proportional. We moderate extremes. Controlling runaway processes is important. Crucially, criticism does not do away with evolution. It controls it. No forest is ever the same. They are constantly changing to accommodate external factors like weather and internal dynamics. To make sure these changes don't break the system, feedback is essential. Pay attention to this difference. In natural systems, stability does not imply motionlessness. Perseverance through change is what it signifies. Even when individual nodes grow, die, and are replaced, feedback ensures that forests continue to be forests. No matter the size, the same rules hold. Hormone synthesis is controlled at the cellular level by biochemical feedback. On an organismal level, growth responds to changes in the availability of resources. Stress causes changes in population dynamics at the level of the ecosystem. The whole benefits from each layer. Looking at forests in this way gets rid of the necessity for command and control altogether. Oversight is unnecessary for balance. It is born out of interaction, response, and constraint. The process that transforms incoherence into coherence is feedback. Forests can recover if we understand feedback. When an external force disrupts the system's equilibrium, feedback loops bring it back to a more manageable state. Not always the same one, but nonetheless one that can be sustained. There is no turning back the clock on recovery. Reorganization under certain parameters. The behavior of subsurface forest becomes less mysterious and more inevitable once this is understood. Given a sufficient number of interdependent parts, input is mandatory. Stability can only be achieved in this way. Still, comments don't cover all bases. What occurs when those typical conditions are dramatically interrupted is not explained, but it does explain balance under normal conditions. At least momentarily, feedback processes can be overwhelmed by fire, drought, storms, or illness. Rather than being an indication of stupidity, what follows is an examination of intelligence. When disturbances occur, subsurface forests' memory, adaptability, and capacity to rebound become apparent. For forest life, disturbance is not the same as interruption. It integrates with it. For the entirety of their existence, forests have been molded by natural forces such as fire, drought, insects, wind, and disease. The important thing is not if disturbances occur, but rather how forests react to them. Disruptions might come at any moment. Within hours, a wildfire covers a large area. Canopies are ripped apart, and trunks are snapped in a storm. Some develop more gradually. Months or perhaps years can pass before drought becomes unbearable. The steady spread of pests causes nodes to deteriorate one by one. These occurrences could appear to be utter anarchy from the outside. They are signals coming from inside the system. In reaction to disturbance, forests show characteristics of both their current and former selves. A blank slate does not meet fire. Past fires, droughts, and recoveries have changed the landscape it encounters. History is important. Think of fire initially. Fire is more of a constant than an occasional calamity in many ecosystems. The thick bark of some tree species acts as a thermal barrier. Still others release cones that, when exposed to fire, only open. Some species depend on fire to drive out predators and liberate nutrients trapped in dead organic materials. These characteristics did not emerge by accident. Long exposure to repeated disturbances is reflected in them. The reaction is predictable when a fire cuts across this type of forest. Some species make it, while others are able to repopulate rapidly. Even if soil chemistry changes, microbial populations usually recover more quickly than anticipated. The nutrients that are released when material is burned can be used by new plants to grow, renewing life beneath the surface of what appears to be devastation. A new obstacle presents itself during a drought, gradually stunting growth and weakening defenses. Water deprivation strains nodes. In order to reduce water loss during photosynthesis, certain nodes seal their stomata. Some dig further, looking for reserves. As the carbon supply decreases, fungal networks also adapt by redistributing resources and decreasing activity. Importantly, subsurface forests' past experiences have a significant impact on how it responds to drought. Forests that have weathered dry spells before tend to react better than those that are experiencing it for the first time. There might be deeper root systems already. Maybe microbial colonies do better in dry environments. Some species may be more suited to tolerate the environment than others. The concept of ecological memory is applicable in this context. Neither ideas nor awareness are the dwelling places of memory in this setting. Structure, soil composition, species composition, and the genetic makeup of populations impacted by historical events all hold it. Much of this memory is stored in the soil. Soil does not regenerate after an upheaval. Communities of microbial community change, but they do not disappear. Buildup or combustion of organic materials occurs. Changes occur in nutrient pools. How subsurface forest reacts to future changes in weather is affected by these changes. Soil chemistry can be altered by repeated fires, for instance, favoring some bacteria over others. The availability of nutrients and plant growth are both impacted by these bacteria. As time passes, subsurface forest adapts to fire, not because it has any sort of intrinsic memory, but because its structure is a product of its environment. To uncover these patterns, long-term forest research have played a vital role. The United States Forest Service and other organizations have kept study plots for many decades to observe the effects of various disturbance cycles on forests. Recovery is rarely the same from one study to the next, according to these research. Subsequent occurrences are influenced by footprints left behind. Another perspective into ecological memory is offered by insect outbreaks. When pests invade a forest, they usually don't hit every tree the same way. Not everyone can withstand assaults to the same degree. A disproportionate amount of the next generation benefits from these survivors. As time goes on, resistance is increasingly prevalent. Simultaneously, root-associated microbial populations may change in reaction to insect damage, which impacts plant health and nutrient cycling. Following an epidemic, a new forest forms, and it differs significantly from the old one. It bears the marks of its hardships. The results are the same, whether the harm is physical, like wind throw. The woodland floor is illuminated by the falling nodes. Conditions of temperature and moisture shift. Species that prefer shade eventually make way for those that do better in full sunlight. As they decompose, foraging structures release nutrients. The webs of fungi restructure. The disruption modifies the regional regulations. The remarkable thing is that forests frequently become functional again, even if they don't look the same. Alterations to the structure. Species diversity changes. So, nutrient cycling is back in action. Development levels off. There is a self-renewing quality to feedback loops. A static shape is not restored, but rather the system adapts. This adaptability is memory and diversity dependent. Each disturbance would be treated as if it were the first in a memoryless forest. The pace and certainty of recovery would be minimal. As a matter of fact, forests frequently recover at a faster rate than anticipated due to the fact that their interior structure has been molded by previous difficulties. Even at the molecular level, memory can be encoded. In response to stress, certain plants display seasonal fluctuations in gene expression. Although these modifications do not modify the DNA sequence, they do affect gene activation. The end effect is an unconscious state of biological readiness. Just to reiterate, this in no way suggests vision. No tree plans for a dry spell. Not a single bacterium has a strategy for a fire. System responses, molded by natural selection, on the other hand, are often better when the same or comparable circumstances arise. The recollection is more statistical in nature than narrative. When scientists explain this, a subtle sense of humor can sometimes come through. They say forests had existed here previously. The expression has an endearingly human quality, while the meaning is purely structural. Repetition has molded the system. One common misunderstanding can be cleared up by learning about ecological memory. It is easy to assume a forest is stupid when it doesn't bounce back after major disturbances. The range that the equipment was designed to handle may have been exceeded by the disturbance. In actuality, memory isn't infinite. Previous adjustments might not work anymore if the rate of change is too high or too drastic. Given the current state of the climate, this is of paramount importance. Regimes of disturbance are changing. Flames are more intense. In contrast, droughts are more protracted. Pests' domains grow. Forests store the stories of bygone eras. It is unclear if those recollections will continue to be valuable. The idea of mindless memory is still potent, though. It exemplifies the unconscious ways in which past events can shape present actions. It clarifies why, instead of relying on planning, forests frequently react coherently to stress. It further supports the view that intelligence in its forest form is not concerned with forecasting. The key is to keep going. Systems that take historical circumstances into account in their current design are better able to react to changes in the environment. Forget about forests enduring an increasing number of disturbances. They have an impact on them. Nothing is ever the same after a fire, drought, or epidemic. Those traces direct subsequent reactions, limiting some opportunities while opening others. For woods, the depth comes from their multi-layered past. There is always more to the story than meets the eye. The structure, species, and soil all hold the memories of numerous interactions that have occurred in the past. Subsurface forests' conduct becomes more comprehensible and less enigmatic after witnessing this. Subsurface forest isn't like a human brain when it comes to remembering things. It recalls its past in the same way that a river recalls its banks, by shape, by limitation, and by the pathways etched by repetition. This recollection lays the groundwork for the inquiry that follows. If forests can subconsciously store past influences, then their ability to endure future change will be proportional to the degree to which that stored structure is flexible. Resilience is built upon that adaptability. Diversity is a prerequisite for resiliency. At first glance, two forests that are adjacent to each other could appear to be quite similar. Natural elements, such as nodes, shade, and piles of leaves. Their underlying structures may be extremely dissimilar, though. Some may be very varied, including many kinds of plants, mushrooms, bacteria, and insects. The second one can be a monoculture, where one species is found repeatedly. Both can look fine when the weather is nice and quiet. When pressure builds up, the disparity jumps out. Because they don't depend on a single method, diverse forests recover more efficiently than uniform ones. They disperse danger. They delegate tasks. They don't bank on relying on just one strategy for staying alive. Every tree in a monoculture usually reacts the same manner when stressed. In the event of a drought, the stomata of all nodes close at about the same rate. A pest can find a steady supply of hosts if it adapts to feed on that species. There aren't many places where a disease can naturally pause its transmission. When things are stable, uniformity makes things run well, but when things are changing, it leaves people exposed. This trend is disrupted by diversity. In response to an identical threat, various animals act differently. Some are more resilient to dry spells, yet some people are able to withstand pests. Some spread rapidly following an interruption, while others continue to grow at a more gradual rate. While some groups experience stress, others are able to carry on with their work. Forests don't die suddenly. Ecologists are familiar with this approach, and it fits in nicely with what we know from network theory. Redundancy, in the context of network research, is the presence of several paths capable of carrying out identical tasks. The term robustness describes a system's capacity to continue operating normally in the face of disruptions or removal of individual components. There are a lot of overlapping paths in a forest full of different species and their interactions. It is possible for nutrients to pass through various fungal partners. Various microbial communities have the ability to metabolize carbon. Diversity in food webs allows for the transfer of energy. One pathway can be strengthened by strengthening others. This is not to say that all roads lead to the same place. Some work better than others. A few are more expensive. On the other hand, options ensure that catastrophic failure does not occur. The system is more flexible than it is rigid. Ecological studies have shown this effect time and time again. Research comparing species-rich forests with simplified ones over long periods of time reveals that diversified systems generally exhibit greater, consistent productivity. Their rate of growth is more consistent. When disturbed, they get back to normal more quickly. Their nutritional cycles are more consistent. That stability is not due to the strength of any one species, and that is crucial. Variation is the source of it. Every species has its own unique niche that it fills. All of them react differently to different kinds of stimuli. They encompass more diversity than any one species could on its own. What disperses risk is this pattern of replies. Some species may be severely harmed by a drought, while others may be relatively untouched. Even if a pest infestation destroys one tree, it might not affect its nearby nodes. Persistence in other areas makes up for the loss of functionality in one. Underneath, fungal diversity serves a comparable purpose. Fungi vary in their preferred host and the kinds of soil and nutrients they thrive on. Certain ones work better when it's dry outside. Plenty of dampness is ideal for other organisms. The network is dynamic. When circumstances change, the relative importance of various partners changes as well. Another layer is added by microbial diversity. Fungal and bacterial processes for decomposing organic materials, releasing nutrients, and interacting with foraging structures are distinct from one another. Even if some members of a varied microbial community diminish, the cycling of nutrients can continue. Even while under duress, this consistency helps plants continue to thrive. Diversity, from a systems viewpoint, expands the range of possible forest functions. Thus, the solution space is enlarged. Foraging structures open and close in a cycle. The woodland isn't need to foresee what danger lies ahead. In order for it to react, all it needs is a little bit of diversity. At this point, the seeming intelligence starts to really stand out. It appears as though the system is intentionally adapting when it continues to work over a wide range of settings. To be more precise, it means capitalizing on variety that already exists. No response is selected. All is laid bare. A touch of subtle humor can assist with this on occasion. The best way to think of a forest is as a collection of individuals, each with their own unique set of skills and experiences, rather than a single expert. Somebody is always partially ready for the unexpected. From this vantage point, it's easy to see how diversity can occasionally lead to less efficiency in the near term. Under perfect circumstances, a monoculture might mature more quickly. The shortest routes are prioritized for the allocation of resources. Very little is repeated. For the time being, everything is set up to work best. In exchange for some loss of efficiency, diversity increases robustness. It adds variety and overlap. It causes a little lag, but this prevents the system from collapsing in the face of unexpected changes. This compromise is deliberate. Over the course of an evolutionary timeline, conditions are seldom constant. Systems that value adaptability above all else usually stay around. People who optimize too narrowly often fall short when faced with unexpected changes. Disturbances can spread in different ways, depending on diversity. Because reactions are coordinated, Stress can quickly spread in a homogeneous forest. Reactions occur at different times in a diverse forest. Growth is slowed by some nodes, some carry on. Recuperation is rapid in some places, a few fall behind. This inconsistency stops domino consequences. Illness follows the same pattern. When hosts are different, the transmission of pathogens is reduced. Pharmacological signaling differs. Defense tactics vary. Obstacles, not roadways, are what the pathogen faces. An intelligence based on structural principles is the result of all this. No intelligence found in living things. However, arrangement-based intelligence, the woodland can remain oblivious to the impending threat. Its variety increases the likelihood that anything will be functional upon arrival. Additionally, this puts conservation in a more realistic perspective. Preserving biodiversity entails more than merely protecting species. Ensuring that systems continue to work properly is the major focus. Variegated alternatives are more flexible. Such alternatives vanish as soon as variety is eradicated. Thinner networks are the result. Redundancy is eliminated. Loss of robustness occurs. The subsurface forest's susceptibility to disturbance increases as it grows more reliant on particular circumstances. The foundation for a harsher truth is laid when this is understood. If variety makes networks stronger, then losing it makes them weaker. When taken apart, the very processes that make us resilient might reveal our frailty. Variety is not a matter of taste. It is the foundation. Furthermore, the effects of infrastructure failure extend well beyond the area of direct observation. The disruption of subterranean networks does not necessarily cause any noticeable changes. Greenery can still be seen in the canopy. Branching out is still an option for birds. Even from a distance, it can look like a forest. The robust behaviors of a forest, however, start to disappear. They have been chopped, compressed, or chemically altered, which has affected the underground infrastructure that sustains them. Thorough logging is one of the quickest methods to break those subterranean connections. Cutting down nodes is about more than just taking wood. Consumption of carbon is reduced. The sugars that nodes produce are essential for the survival of fungal network. The rate of carbon sequestration decreases dramatically after extensive tree cutting. Vegetation dies out. The hyphae close. The web that connected so many people separates into smaller and smaller islands. This is significant because root-bound fungal networks are more than merely aesthetic. Such paths are used for transport. A living web that enables foraging structures to reach more soil, transporting water, nitrogen, phosphorus, and trace minerals through soil pores that foraging structures can't reach on their own. The loss of such root systems reduces a tree's food supply and the alternatives available to it. Once acting as a cohesive system, a forest now acts more like a collection of individuals sharing a common space. In recent decades, there has been a shift in the focus of forestry study, away from clear cutting and toward the distinct effects of selective logging. The fungal population can rely on the remaining mature nodes to provide support and stability. The soil continues to absorb carbon. The network is still somewhat operational. The loss of continuity in the subsurface makes recovery more slower after clearing the area, regardless of how quickly seedlings are planted. After that, soil compaction usually follows. The poreholes in soil that ordinarily contain water and air are compressed when heavy machinery is used. Such pores are not inconsequential features. They make up the subterranean architecture. To grow, foraging structures require them. To propagate, fungi rely on them. Breathing is essential for microbial community. Changes in water circulation, oxygen levels, and microbial communities as a whole occur when pores close. Food nutrient cycling becomes less efficient. As a result, the soil loses some of its vitality, which is detrimental to forests. One more harsh sort of delay is created by compaction. The rate of regeneration for a canopy is higher than that of a soil structure. Foraging structures could still be shallow, even after nodes cover the area again. The webs of fungi are still very thin. The activity of microbial community is still changed. Even if its secret mechanisms are still operating at reduced capacity, subsurface forest seems to have recovered. Alterations to land usage can elevate this to the next level. The fungal hyphae are physically sheared repeatedly during the conversion of forests to agriculture due to the frequent tilling. By supplying nutrients directly, fertilizer alters the subsurface economy and lessens the benefit of networks that facilitate fungal trading. The microbiome can be changed by the use of pesticides and herbicides. As a result of crop rotations, plant communities become more simplified, which in turn supports fungal communities that are also more simplified. Soil sometimes retains the imprint of disturbance for decades or even centuries, even after nodes have returned to previously cleared area. A distinct kind of network disruption is urban development. The formation of roads, buildings, and other hard surfaces prevents soil from being permeated by water and gas. Foraging structures can only grow in very small spaces, so fungi can't just pop up anywhere. There is a decline in microbial diversity. Because of this, city nodes may give the impression of being healthy for a while, but in reality, they often lack the subterranean root systems that give woods their stability. There is a practical as well as an aesthetic distinction. Reduced access to nutrients is typically the first major effect of network disruptions. Soil tests may still reveal the presence of nutrients, but it has nothing to do with their actual delivery. Soil particles frequently form strong bonds with phosphorus, for instance. It is especially easily acquired by fungal network. Degradation of fungal networks can cause nodes to exhibit phosphorus limitation, even in soils with an excess of phosphorus. Natural resources surround subsurface forest, but it is unable to access them effectively. Furthermore, water buffering diminishes. For nodes, the water in the soil can be accessed through the fungal networks that are still intact. Indirectly, they can affect soil structure by providing a home for microbial community that aid in aggregation. The soil's ability to retain water and prevent it from drying out might be compromised when networks are disturbed. Drought causes nodes to experience stress sooner and recover at a slower rate. None of these pressures exist in a vacuum. When nodes aren't getting enough nutrients, they don't make as many protective chemicals. Nodes that aren't getting enough water may be more susceptible to diseases and pests. Here is where the chain reaction starts. Multiple disruptions are magnified by one. What began as damaged infrastructure grows more vulnerable. For decades, organizations dedicated to long-term research have monitored these cascading patterns, including the US Forest Service. Slower recovery following disturbance is associated with deteriorated soils and disrupted subterranean populations, according to several long-term forest plots. The effects of natural disasters, such as droughts or insect outbreaks, might linger and be more severe in forests where the subsurface networks are already poor. Stress can no longer be buffered or redistributed by the system. Enhanced unpredictability is a very telling indicator of the network collapse. There is typically some consistency between growth and health in a natural forest. Consistency over a large number of people rather than absolute homogeneity. When forests are disturbed, extremes occur frequently. Although some nodes mature rapidly, others take their time. Death rates become uneven. Uniform regeneration is achieved. There is a discord in subsurface forest. It is easy to misjudge this disappearance of behavior at the system level. The temptation to attribute failure to unlucky timing, bad weather, or seedling quality is strong. Those are important considerations, but they don't answer the question of why a replanted region can still have problems at times, even with enough rainfall and sunshine. In many cases, the underlying cause is the absence of the subsurface support system. Planting a tree in soil is one thing, but putting it into an existing or rebuildable network is an entirely different story. Also, keep in mind that forests could appear to be steady at first glance due to network loss. Because big nodes have stored reserves and extensive root systems, a mature forest may continue to exist for a long time, even if underground communication weakens. When a second stressor hits, the fragility is brought to light. Even a once survivable drought can now prove fatal. A pest epidemic moves swiftly and devastatingly. Although subsurface forests' apparent collapse occurred at a later date, the underlying deterioration occurred sooner. Ecologists' discussions of this topic can incorporate subtle humor due of the striking difference. On the surface, things can appear to be running smoothly. It may be a reduced power variant of the original system installed underground. While subsurface forest does retain the costume, it does not possess the complete performance. Which species can survive changes as networks fail? The importance of mycorrhizal relationships varies throughout tree species. When disturbed, the soil can kill some fungi. Species dependent on consistent fungal connections may become extinct as disturbance-tolerant species proliferate in regularly disturbed ecosystems. As time passes, subsurface forests' makeup changes. The story does not aim to teach a lesson about right and wrong land use. What follows is a mechanical account of the tactics that work in different environments. Due to the universality of the underlying principles, its applicability goes far beyond forests. Soil structure and nutrient cycling are sustained in grasslands by mycorrhizal fungus and varied microbial communities. To control nitrogen and carbon levels, wetlands rely on intricate microbial processes. Fertility retention and input reduction are both improved when agricultural soils are seen as living networks rather than a static substrate. Systems grow reliant on continuous replenishment of what was once recycled internally when these networks are disrupted. This is why restoring function has become more important than just planting nodes. Attempts to re-establish connectedness, instead of only cover, include protecting soil, reducing compaction, using cautious harvesting procedures, and in certain instances, intentionally inoculating with fungi. The number of nodes is becoming less important in conservation studies, and more important is whether or if the system can re-establish self-regulation. The bigger picture is straightforward, but it does cause some unease. Even when people die out, nodes will continue to grow. It has trouble when it can't connect. The system's capacity to disperse resources, disseminate information, buffer stress, and recover from disturbances is all diminished when networks fail. And that is the thing that matters the most. As nodes age, their intelligence-like behavior does not go away. Because coordination becomes tougher, it disappears. There are still local reactions, but they don't make sense anymore. Subsurface forest continues to function normally, even when networks are down. It ceases to operate in tandem. Many of the parts have already been laid out. Foraging structures that perceive and respond, fungal networks that distribute resources, biochemical messengers that transmit data independently of cerebral cortex, healthy rivalry that cuts through the crap, loops that stabilize behavior through feedback, event that causes structural damage with long-term effects, diversity that spreads risk. After considering all of this, the next step is to identify the exact nature of a forest. Systems constructed in this manner have a name in system science. Systematically adaptable complexes. There are numerous interdependent components that make up an adaptive system. Each component is independent of all others. Every component reacts to its immediate environment by following its own set of rules. More substantial patterns arise as a result of those exchanges. Over time, the system adjusts, not intentionally, but as a result of successful configurations sticking around and unsuccessful ones going away. For some reason, forests seem to meet this description really well. Due to the simultaneous operation of numerous levels, they are inherently complicated. Nodes, candidate fungi, microbial organisms, little creatures, a study of soil chemistry. The movement of water, climate, and disruption all work hand in hand. As a whole, none of these levels can be comprehended. People influence and are influenced by one another. They are able to adjust to new environments, which makes them adaptive. Rates of growth change. Species diversity shifts. Material resources are restructured. There is no simple return to the pre-disturbance state of the system. A new, more practical configuration is discovered. The fact that the overall behavior of the system is not explicable by its individual components is another reason why they are considered systems. If you cut down only one tree, subsurface forest will still be a forest. When you cut off all connections, the behavior changes drastically. An attempt to make sense of this type of behavior gave rise to complexity theory. Mathematicians, physicists, and biologists started to notice commonalities in systems as diverse as traffic flow, weather patterns, ecosystems, and economies. There was no clear direction in the order. Interaction led to stability, repeating patterns on different sizes. Complexity does not necessitate intricate regulations, as multidisciplinary studies started to demonstrate. Indeed, it frequently results from the repetitive application of really basic ones. All that is needed to create structure is feedback, constraints, variation, and selection. These substances can be found in abundance in woodlands. Feedback controls development. Expansion is limited by constraints. Different approaches are shown via variation. What stays is filtered by selection. The system gradually gains its own structure. This explains how undisturbed woodlands can give the impression of having a purpose. They appear to develop efficiently. They seem to recover strategically. Their reactions to stress appear to be proactive, but planning ahead is not a part of it. Due to the transient nature of inefficient structures, the appearance of purpose emerges. The woodland canopy vanishes when the weather gets too dry. One that is more equitable in distributing resources remains in place. The remaining configurations provide the appearance of purpose throughout several cycles. Due to the fact that our gut feelings link preparation with purpose, this might be disconcerting. This relationship is true in engineered systems. It doesn't work in natural systems at all. Filtering, not foresight, is the source of purpose-like behavior. A subtle part is played by physics in this. Direction is imposed by energy fluxes. Limits are imposed by entropy. Systematic organization is not an outcome of physical rule defiance, but rather of law compliance. Solar radiation penetrates the body. Chemical bonds are formed as it progresses during photosynthesis. It goes through a process of distribution, transformation, and dissipation. Forests form pathways that water can follow. A forest is not seen as an immobile entity from this vantage point. An ongoing procedure, consistent flow of energy and materials maintains a pattern. When the flow is interrupted, the building collapses. All of the previously listed things are brought together by this process view. Foraging structures are able to detect because sensing makes acquiring resources easier. Because of the increased efficiency in the transfer of energy and nutrients, networks come into being. Because a prompt reaction lessens harm, signaling is necessary. Adaptive range is expanded, which allows diversity to persist. All of these characteristics are interdependent. They complement each other. Signaling is enabled by networks. Development is impacted by signaling. Expansion changes the structure of databases. The feedback connects all of the pieces. The fact that so little centralized coordination is necessary is very remarkable. Root growth and fungal network architecture are not predetermined by any one blueprint. Enough is done by interacting locally. Nature constructs its own canopy. Complex systems, according to complexity researchers, are on the brink of chaos and order. Rigidity sets in when there is an excess of regulation. When there's too much disarray, it falls apart. In this medium ground, forests function, stable due of its structure, adaptable enough to respond. Because of this equilibrium, Forests can be both strong and susceptible. Not all disruptions are absorbed by them. When subjected to extreme conditions, feedback loops degrade and the system undergoes reorganization, occasionally taking on whole new forms. The behavior of complex adaptive systems is also non-linear. Effects can be magnified by even minor adjustments. Surprisingly little changes can occasionally result from big ones. For this reason, forecasting how a forest would react is a challenging task. Time, context, and pre-existing structure are as important as the magnitude of a disturbance in determining the results. A moderate drought that follows a fire might not make much of a difference. Devastating mortality could be triggered by the same drought that follows years of stress. The internal state of the system is where the difference is. Forests are not delicate only because they are sensitive. It indicates that they are flexible. They act in a way that is reflective of both the past and the present. Seeing woods through the lens of complex adaptive systems is far from being poetic from a scientific perspective. The idea is realistic. It alters the way inquiries are made. Research questions now focus on how forests self-regulate rather than how to manage them. They look at interactions between factors rather than individual ones. Because of this change, restoration, forestry, and conservation have all been affected. Preserving connectedness is more important than protecting individual nodes. Managing just for output disregards input and variety. The results are more trustworthy when the system is supported. The concept feels strangely familiar, which can lead to gentle humor in this setting. A lot of the time, humans also design complex systems that are difficult to control. This pattern of conduct is present in financial markets, power grids, and traffic systems as well. The results of attempts at centralized control are often unexpected. Forests don't deal with this issue because they're smarter. They just never make an effort to be controlled. Instead, they depend on communication and comments. This analogy aids in expanding significance beyond the realm of ecology. Many ecological systems can be understood by observing the processes that occur in forests. Reefs of coral, defense mechanisms, networks in the brain. The weather on Earth is just as complicated as any other adaptive system. Differences lie in size and medium, not reasoning. Even with this knowledge, woods remain more than just abstract concepts. It provides a foundation for their actions that allows us to comprehend their beauty and unpredictability. This clarifies the fact that forests do not need a shared brain to experience a sense of communal vitality. It is unnecessary for subsurface forest to know what it is doing, and it is not. The structure it has taken on is the result of innumerable interactions that have been molded by physical constraints and the passage of time. Because of its design, the behavior may be optimized to perform well under the majority of situations. This perspective on forests brings all that has come before together. Multiple processes, including sensing, signaling, collaboration, rivalry, feedback, memory, variety, and breakdown, merge into one overarching process. Thinking does not make a forest intelligent. Its intelligence stems from its meticulous organization. Organization, when it develops to a certain point, can resemble purpose to a startling degree. Now that that structure is in place, forests may be explained in general terms. They are just one more illustration of how complexity may lead to unplanned yet meaningful behavior. Once that thought takes root, comparisons will follow. In this respect, forests are not exceptional. To put it simply, they are among the best locations to observe the logic of complex adaptive systems in a calm, unobtrusive way. Forests undergo a remarkable transformation once they are viewed as intricate, adaptive systems. They seem ordinary after a while. Rather, they begin to resemble someone you know. Underneath the canopy of nodes, there are not solitary oddities. They reflect patterns seen in nature, in seemingly disparate systems that really follow the same principles. Even subsurface forest isn't immune. Here is one example. Think about anthills. The capabilities of a single ant are restricted. It acts according to basic principles. It reacts to changes in temperature, physical touch, and chemical signals. Not a single ant has a clue about how the colony is structured, but ant colonies do all that and more. They construct elaborate nests, control the temperature, divide up the work, and react quickly to danger. No one ant possesses the collective intelligence of the colony. Interaction gives rise to it. As soon as food is located, chemical traces become more robust. Changes in movement patterns occur when danger is perceived. When we get feedback, it encourages us to do better and discourages us from doing worse. Without preparation, the colony adjusts. Much the same holds true for forests. Local changes in water, nutritional, and chemical signals cause nodes to react. Wherever there is fruitful exchange, fungal networks become stronger. When we're under pressure, our growth habits change. Unconsciously, subsurface forest changes. This is not a passing resemblance. It has a framework. Distributed decision-making, feedback loops, and scalable local interactions are key components of both systems. You don't need a leader in either system. Both do not necessitate a plan. The rules make it possible for order to arise. Yet another illuminating analogy is the immune system. A wide variety of dangers are shielded from the body by it. It can recognize new molecules, recall previous interactions, and fine-tune its reactions going forward. But not a single cell is aware of which part of the body it defends. Chemical gradients are followed by immune cells. Particular molecular patterns bond to them. The profusion of effective responses reinforces them. Responses that don't work fade away. Changes to cell populations and signaling pathways, rather than mental processes, store memories. Forest ecological memory is reflected here. Soil communities, species mix, and structural linkages are all impacted by past disturbances. The past shapes the present and shapes the future. Subsurface forest has altered its internal configuration, not because it remembers. Another layer of comfort is added by neural networks. Neurons are basic units. They can be controlled by chemical and electrical signals. They use thresholds to decide whether to fire or stay silent. Thoughts are incomprehensible to neurons. Perception, learning, and behavior are all based on networks of neurons. Adaptations in the strength of connections are the building blocks of learning in neural networks. Used pathways get more robust. They become weaker when they aren't. Eventually, patterns even out. With repeated use, the system grows more adept at handling known inputs. Similar behaviors are observed in forests. Where there is frequent interaction, the linkages between foraging structures and fungi get stronger. In reaction to repeated stimuli, networks can rearrange themselves. There are still methods to keep going, those that remain evergreen. Regardless of the medium, the rationale remains the same. Interactions between components are more important than the components themselves in each of these instances. Very few biological similarities exist between antibodies, immune cells, neurons, and nodes. They both have a knack for organization. This concept has been formalized over several decades in network science. Scientific investigations have revealed that a great number of systems can be modeled as interconnected webs of nodes. While the specifics change, there are recurring themes. Clusters emerge, nodes appear. The resilience is enhanced by redundant paths. Vulnerability rises with excessive centralization. Ecosystems, brains, social systems, and technological networks all exhibit recurrence of these concepts. There is a purpose behind the repetition. Constraints from physics, energy flow, and data processing are reflected in it. A concept of universality emerges from this pattern of repetition. Universality is a concept in complexity research that describes how seemingly unrelated systems can display shared behaviors due to shared fundamental components. Phase transitions in materials and population dynamics in ecology are two examples of faraway phenomena that can occasionally be described mathematically. Within this framework, forests are perfectly at home. They are not alone in their actions. What usually occurs when a large number of interdependent parts work together under feedback and limitation is this. Looking at forests through this lens eliminates the need to treat them differently. They aren't some shadowy figures with a secret agenda. What you see here is the biological manifestation of a larger pattern. As this realization begins to set in, a subtle sense of humor usually surfaces. It turns out that subsurface forest is quite similar to the way an immune system, brain, or ant colony operates. Regardless of the fact that we shared hardly anything, good ideas tend to be recycled by nature. The parallels are not based on outward appearance, which is important. Colonies of ants do not resemble woods. Fungal networks are not analogous to immune systems. Root systems are not analogous to neural circuits. Dynamic systems, distributed controls, local rules, and feedback-driven adaptation are commonalities. Because it avoids making simplistic comparisons, this difference is significant. No, forests do not have brains. Nodes aren't rational. No ant can reason. The intelligence-like actions are the result of organization rather than cognition. Witnessing this aids in situating woods. These situations do not call for unique justifications. Similar rules that control other complicated systems also apply to them. This further clarifies why a restricted definition of intelligence leads to ambiguity. The whole idea of forests seems counterintuitive if intelligence is defined as the capacity to think. For the purposes of this discussion, we will assume that forests are intelligent if we define intelligence as the effective, adaptive behavior resulting from contact. Instead of being unusual, subsurface forest becomes illustrative, an obvious and concrete illustration of the behavior of complex systems under favorable conditions. This more expansive perspective also shields against the dangers of romanticism. It stays away from accusing someone of having good intentions when they don't. Like an immune cell, subsurface forest has no idea what it's doing. Still, it's possible for both to act in very successful ways. While doing so, this viewpoint maintains its relevance. It is not trivial to organize without being conscious. It packs a punch. This allows life to endure in the face of environmental change. Because of this, systems can adjust spontaneously. Lessons can be transferred when we see forests as an example of a universal pattern. Neuroscience is informed by ecological principles. Conservation is aided by the findings of network science. Disciplines blur their borders. There is no ornamental value to this transdisciplinary interchange. The idea is realistic. Researchers are able to tell when they're looking at the same phenomenon using multiple terms because of this. Critical assessment, changing form, new beginnings, standing firm. Forests serve as educators in this way, for the simple reason that they can be read, not because they have consciousness. Their observable structures and slow timelines make it easier to observe abstract principles. Subsurface forest ceases to feel like an aberration in need of explanation once these patterns are recognized. Instead of neurons or cells, it seems like a familiar system that operates in a familiar way, but with wood, dirt, and fungi instead. A last change follows logically from that realization. It may be necessary to rethink the very definition of intelligence if forests are just one example, not as a quality of minds, but as a property of ordered interaction. Furthermore, this change paves the way for a more subdued and inclusive view of intelligence. The description of woods is more important than it seems at first. Words are more than just a record of events. Someone frames them. They influence the sensations of intuition, strangeness, and plausibility. The study of forest networks has frequently encountered language as both an enabler and an impediment. Words that link new processes to common human experience, such as memory, cooperation, sharing, and communication, are potent. They facilitate the rapid understanding of intricate interconnections. People tend to picture signals, reactions, and cooperation. When scientists claim that nodes can communicate, it all makes sense. Words have the power to both inform and deceive. Assumptions accompany the meaning of anthropomorphic language, which is defined as language that gives non-human systems human characteristics. Expression implies purpose. Giving shows kindness. Awareness is hinted at by memory. Although scientists rarely intend these implications, they have the power to subtly alter our understanding. As a field, forest science is not immune to this conflict. It is pervasive in the biological sciences. It is thought that genes desire to multiply. It is said that cells make a decision to divide. We say that immune systems can identify harmful pathogens. The language inherently leads to the conclusion that conscious cognition is implied, even though none of these claims actually do so. Experts in the field are fully cognizant of this issue. Using metaphors repeatedly is not an indication of carelessness. This compromise is really realistic. The complexity of biological systems is astounding. Though technically accurate, describing things in such a way makes them unreachable to the average person. Emblems condense description. In this way, concepts can be disseminated and understood by people from different fields. A lot of contemporary science would still be shrouded in jargon if they weren't around. Forest ecologists are not making any ethical claims when they discuss carbon sharing among nodes. Molecule fluxes over physical networks are being described. Not an assertion, just a metaphor. Careful handling is required, yet it saves time and generates intuition. When slang becomes dogma, problems emerge. Forests start to resemble societies when metaphors are taken at their value. Neighbors among nodes. Conversations turn into networks. While the science remains the same, the way it has been interpreted has altered. This has been a topic of study for philosophers of science for many years. They contend that language is not an unbiased medium. It influences models and explanations in a proactive way. Which inquiries are asked and which answers are satisfying are both affected by the words that are selected. Efficacy and clarity are always considered when crafting language for explanations. An excess of detail. Determination crumbles in the face of specifics. Overuse of metaphor and lack of precision degrades. The confined area in the middle is where excellent scientific communication thrives. When talking about intelligence, this equilibrium is rather precarious. Every person's life experiences give intelligence a significant weight. It suggests thinking, consciousness, and goal setting. Its haphazard application begs for misunderstanding. Real patterns of adaptive behavior can be obscured if it is avoided totally. Thus, intelligence is often referred to as intelligent-like behavior rather than intelligence itself by many scientists. The expression denotes resemblance without implying identity. Without requiring thought, it acknowledges effectiveness. This difference can be maintained with careful language. A forest's intelligent behavior is distinct from its intelligence itself. The first one gives a result. In the second, a property is assigned. Observable patterns are one example. Internal states are implied by the other. Communicating requires the same level of attention. The ability to speak verbally is not present in plants. They can't decipher codes or decipher communications. Chemicals are released by them. Different kinds of life react. The tone of the exchange is more casual and conversational. Still, there are instances when the functional resemblance is obscured, when this is referred to as signaling instead of communication. Data travels via signals. Their actions change. As long as the limitations of the metaphor are recognized, that is sufficient to support it from a systemic viewpoint. The use of metaphor and explanation in scientific writing often alternates for this reason. Upon describing pathways that communicate via fungal networks, A publication may swiftly clarify that no mental processes or purpose are at play. The door is opened by the metaphor. It remains grounded thanks to the clarification. Light-hearted banter serves as a therapeutic outlet in these conversations. As soon as scientists make a joke about nodes talking, they promptly clarify that what they're really saying is completely chemical. Humor diffuses the metaphor while recognizing it. Emotional responses are also impacted by language. Caring and inquisitiveness might be sparked by anthropomorphic depictions. In doing so, they humanize woodlands. Emotional investment is important in conservation, therefore this could be useful there. However, when nodes act in ways that go against human values, it can lead to disappointment. Weak people are not protected by forests. Its behavior is unfair. Its goal is not concord. Trust can be eroded when these realities clash with romantic words. Avoiding such mismatch is easier with clear language. We are not aiming to de-emphasize poetry in poetry. To enable astonishment without distortion, it is necessary to link picture with mechanism. Better scientific thinking is also supported by careful wording. By viewing metaphors as models instead than absolute truths, we open the door to testing, refining, and eventually discarding them. When received at face value, they are difficult to change. Forests are frequently brought up in larger conversations, like ethics, cooperation, and intelligence. Thus, this is significant. Careless wording might make it difficult to tell what is a description and what is a prescription. Accuracy maintains the integrity of those limits. Many academics have been more forthright with their wording in recent years. Words like memory, learning, and decision-making are getting more and more definitional sections in academic papers. This demonstrates the increasing recognition that language influences both public comprehension and scholarly discussion. This problem persists. Words need to be created for new findings. The burden of old language is real. Careful, reflective use of the tools provided is all that is required. There is no perfect vocabulary waiting to be chosen. Grasping this concept clarifies preceding chapters. The term remembering is used to explain how forests undergo continuous structural change. The term communication is used to describe the process of chemical signaling between them. When people talk of them working together, it's to express a selectively shaped transaction in which both parties benefit. Thinking isn't necessary for any of these. Not one of them necessitates purpose. The emphasis is on purpose rather than personal history in the phrase. Subsurface forest maintains its allure without becoming supernatural. So long as this difference is remembered, you won't misunderstand it if you admire its behavior. Without becoming overly anthropomorphized, its complexity can be uncovered. Beyond describing subsurface forest, language does much more. In order to comprehend it, it serves as a guide. Carefully selected words shed light on a topic rather than obscuring it. The foundation for the last change is laid by this meticulous framing. Protecting nodes from misunderstandings becomes unnecessary once language and mechanism are in sync. They have outlived the necessity for legal shielding from baseless accusations. Alternatively, you can enjoy them for what they actually are, not thinking beings, but systems whose organization produces behavior that feels meaningful because it works. Furthermore, the final stage in gaining a clear view of forests is to acknowledge that distinction. Deceptively simple was the question that sparked this voyage. How come nodes act like they can think when they clearly can't? My original question doesn't seem to apply after going through the stages of foraging structures and fungus, signals and feedback, disruption and recovery. Now it's longer. It is now softer. The form has transformed. The riddle of concealed minds currently appears to be more of a definitional challenge than anything else. The term intelligence has a very specific meaning that people have become used to. Conventional wisdom holds that it is an innate quality of living things, something that may be acquired or lost via the processes of thinking, planning, and self-awareness. For that reason, it's obvious that woods don't meet the criteria. Nothing has ever happened to them. They lack neurons, ideas, and any kind of life experience. The behavior, however, persists. Subsurface forest changes. They react to pressure. Damage causes them to reorganize. They manage resources, control extremes, and endure change. These achievements are significant. These are the kinds of results that people commonly point to intellect when trying to explain them. The stress goes away when we stop thinking of intelligence as an object and start seeing it as a process. Intelligence does not have to be limited to brains. According to a rising consensus in cognitive science and biology, the capacity of a system to provide suitable reactions to changing circumstances is, according to some experts, the best way to understand intelligence. Ability to continue functioning normally in the face of ambiguity is another way that it is defined. Others, however, place a premium on data analysis, feedback, and customization. Intelligence ceases to be an existential quality and instead becomes an event. What has already been observed in forests is reflected in this change. Every tree lacks intelligence. All fungus strands are stupid. Their interactions form a system, nevertheless, and that system produces functional behavior. Nowhere can you find the intelligence. It is shared throughout interpersonal connections. The traditional practice of classifying systems as either thinking or non-thinking has been undermined by this concept. A continuum, rather than a sharp line, is proposed between intelligence and non-intelligence. Uncomplicated systems react in uncomplicated ways. The responses of more intricate systems are more nuanced and adaptable. A distinct border does not emerge anywhere. From this vantage point, the mere presence of a brain does not activate intelligence. It develops over time as feedback and interaction layers build up in systems. Intelligence can take numerous forms, and this perspective helps to clarify why. Bacteria use chemical gradients to their advantage. Exposure teaches the immune system new things. Colonies of ants divide up the work. Ideas come from the brain. Woodlands play an important role in maintaining biological balance. Although they all work on different scales and use different methods, all of them display interaction-shaped adaptive behavior. Not a single one of these systems requires any kind of comprehension on their part. Responding in ways that foster perseverance is all that is required of them. There is no longer any need for exceptionalism when intellect is viewed as a process instead of a quality. The intellect of humans is no longer seen as an exception, but as a part of a larger pattern. Despite their remarkable architecture, brains are nonetheless systems that are physically limited, influenced by feedback, limited by energy, and enmeshed in networks. Despite this consistency, human intellect remains unabated. This puts it into perspective. Intelligence is not defined by reasoning, imagination, and self-awareness, but rather by the specialized outputs that a system achieves at a certain level of complexity. Consequently, forests are not defunct brains. These systems have been successful. Without preparation, they attain steadiness. Without planning ahead, they adjust. They accomplish their tasks in unison. One need not give any consideration to these results. They necessitate structure. This new perspective also explains why, in the event of a network failure, intelligence-like activity vanishes. The process that led to adaptive behavior fails when links are broken, feedback is diminished, and variety is lost. A person's intelligence remains even after brain damage. The process can't run anymore, therefore it exits. The ability to generalize makes that knowledge potent. Everything from ecosystems to society to technologies falls within this umbrella. The fragility that follows from viewing intelligence as a property instead of a process is inevitable. Resilience becomes feasible if it is viewed as an emergent property of interaction. When faced with an option that initially seems disheartening, a touch of subtle humor can be helpful. A certain allure surrounds the concept of sage forests, subtly contemplating our footsteps. Although it lacks romance, the truth is significantly more intriguing. Forests aren't cognitive systems, but they manage to do something that systems with minds have a hard time doing. They don't go away. This tenacity is active. It is a state of active regulation, characterized by ongoing adjustment and response. No forest is ever truly complete. Continually evolving, the initial inquiry becomes less salient if intelligence is viewed in this light. Intelligence was never an essential quality for subsurface forest. Thus, it doesn't require a mind to act intelligently. Assuming the right circumstances, the system will accomplish it. Having this knowledge also removes the need to try to explain or ignore forest behavior. It is unnecessary to ascribe awareness in situations where it does not exist. Also, there's no need to boil everything down to meaningless, mechanical parts. There is organization between those two ends, producing meaningful outcomes, creating stability, supporting life, adapting throughout time, and giving rise to patterns that feel meaningful because they work are all that are required of an organization. For this reason, woods do not necessitate a change in how we think about intelligence. They bring to light one that was previously present but concealed by preconceptions centered upon humans. Possessing ideas is not the same as being intelligent. What happens when a lot of elements interact while being limited is the main idea. Reaction, not reflection. Regulation, not thinking. Persistence, not awareness. That is what it's all about. As soon as that change takes root, intelligence ceases to appear rare. It gets out of the exclusive domain of beings with a human-like appearance. Any environment that permits the accumulation of interaction, feedback, and adaptation will eventually have this trait. Forests merely highlight this. Their operations take decades, not seconds, and they proceed at a snail's pace, all while remaining silent. By reducing mental activity to a trickle, the underlying structure of ideas can be seen. The difference between a thinking forest and an ordered one is crucial, as it determines the outcome. Intelligence can then be perceived as a process rather than a possession, as a badge of dominance rather than a badge of complexity, as something that emerges gradually whenever systems are allowed to interact for an adequate amount of time, rather than a discrete phenomenon. Now that everyone is on the same page, subsurface forest may relax its defenses. To be amazing, it doesn't require any sort of humanization. Its lack of pretense makes it all the more remarkable, and taking intelligence in this light makes the last step seem more subtle than dramatic. Whether forests think is now a moot point. The real question is whether thinking was ever an appropriate metric to use. We may return to the question that has subtly followed everything up to this point without feeling rushed. Why does forest action often appear clever if nodes do not think, have no consciousness, no aim, and no inner experience whatsoever? The safest option is often the simplest. Intelligence, at its most fundamental level, is distinct from mind, which explains why forests exhibit intelligent behavior. Intelligence as consequence, resilience in the face of adversity, a proportional response to stress, and a propensity to structure resources such that they continue to function over time are what forests reveal, not intelligence as feeling or reflection. Aside from structure, engagement, and feedback, none of this necessitates consciousness. This difference is significant because it clarifies the problem without diminishing its awe-inspiring quality. Subsurface forest does not seem contradictory after intelligence is divorced from thinking. It does not require an unconscious mind to coordinate its reactions. Rather, it merely requires connections that enable local acts to impact broader patterns. In response to changes in moisture, foraging structures release stored nutrients. Fungus reassort nutrients. Chemical cues modulate behavior. Feedback loops control extremes, and variety disperses danger. These interactions build up to effective behavior over time. Despite the fact that every single process in this picture has been measured, tested, and witnessed, the combined effect is nevertheless remarkably mechanical. Scale, not mystery, is the source of that sensation. Forests function on time frames that defy human understanding. Seasons and decades pass as responses develop, changes add up, and patterns appear slowly enough to seem deliberate, even when they aren't. Patience allows coherence to emerge. It is easy to misunderstand this consistency. Beings that seek out patterns are humans. It is common to assume purpose when actions seem to be coordinated. Coordinating actions, however, are not always dependent on the knowledge of any one component of the system. All that's needed is for replies to reliably feed back into each other. In this light, woods do not contradict science, but rather serve to demonstrate it. These examples illustrate the effects of energy flow in a system when there are sufficient variables, components, and time for feedback to influence the results. Intelligence is dispersed rather than hidden. Crucially, elucidating this does not diminish importance. The idea that actions lose all significance when we aren't thinking about them is enticing. The inverse is correct. Being able to comprehend the mindless operation of forests demonstrates the immense power of organization. Even in unplanned areas, forests control the flow of water, carbon, nutrients, and temperature. They bounce back from disturbances unconsciously. They change without realizing it. Compared to intelligence based on thoughts, this is astounding. From a different angle, it is remarkable. Intelligence at the human level is quick, adaptable, and delicate. Conditions that are too restrictive, energy-intensive tissue, and ongoing upkeep are its downfall. If you can even call it that. Forest intelligence is robust but slow. It can withstand setbacks, recover quickly, and keep going. Both forms are complementary. They are both points on the same spectrum. This viewpoint also provides a foundation for anticipations. No, forests aren't smart. They can't keep everything safe. Harmony is not their goal. They stay put when circumstances permit, and rearrange themselves when that is not the case. A collapse could occur. Setbacks are inevitable. Truthfulness is paramount. It keeps us from being let down and from becoming overly idealized about natural processes. Belief in the beneficence or consciousness of woods is not necessary for their appreciation. You have to admit that they're well organized. Simply being organized is enough to bring about actions that have a sense of purpose. So, it's not a mystery why forests act intelligently, even when they don't think about it. The puzzling part is how frequently people fail to notice intelligence that differs from their own. Thought has grown to be the de facto norm, even if it is merely a manifestation of something more complex. When we remove that metric, we may better observe intelligence in other contexts, such as immune systems that learn subconsciously, ecosystems that control themselves without human intervention, and networks that change and evolve without prior preparation. There are many examples, but forests stand out as an especially glaring one. There is adequate room to watch their procedures. Their elapsed times are manageable. You can feel the parts of these things. What takes place on subsurface forest floor is concrete. It has a quantifiable chemical and physical component, but when combined, it results in actions that seem more substantial than the sum of their parts. You don't have to explain that emotion. It is possible to see it as a reaction to complicated situations. Systems that remain intact when faced with adversity elicit an emotional response from humans. Feeling stable is important. Holding on gives one a sense of purpose. These responses reveal just as much about the nature of human vision as they do regarding nodes. Gaining insight into the underlying mechanisms does not diminish that reaction. That makes it sharper. The depth of a forest is preserved even when its intelligent behavior is unconsciously intelligent, and it gets it. No longer is each reaction purely coincidental. Neither is it supernatural. It is the product of innumerable encounters molded by time and constraints. Additionally, this framing encourages serenity instead of wonder. Forests should not be elevated to an unknowable status. They don't bury their truths under the surface of awareness. Their behavior is amenable to observation, which is comforting. Respect for subsurface forest does not necessitate its mystification. Acknowledging the degree of cooperation needed for stability, the fragility of that coordination, and the ease with which it can be disturbed is a step toward earning respect. The knowledge of how forests work makes the loss of these places more real, not less so. Concurrently, knowing helps keep hope from fading. Because they are able to adapt to new circumstances, forests have survived despite tremendous human interference. Although finite, that resilience is undeniable. This question can be left resolved, but not closed. Nodes aren't thinking. It is a fact. Despite this, their actions are effective, coherent, and adaptive. That is not contradictory in the least. Thought is not required for intelligent behavior. It calls for effective communication. When something happens slowly, quietly, and on scales too big for any one organism to understand, it looks like what you see in forests. They do not function as neural networks. They are ones that work. But just because you can tell they are different doesn't mean you should treat them any less seriously. It emphasizes their features. Now that everything is crystal clear, the question is more of a perspective than an answer. Intelligent behavior in forests does not result from any inherent qualities of the nodes themselves, but rather from the freedom to function as integrated systems. That is not the end, you know. It is an open-minded perspective. Now is the moment to face the original question, which sparked this exploration, one final time, without any sense of haste or anxiety. What gives forests their seemingly intelligent behavior if they are incapable of thought, awareness, intention, or inner experience? The response is no longer perplexing at this point. Thinking is not necessary for intelligent behavior. Intelligence is not necessary. Deciding to do it is not necessary. What is needed is effective organization. Because of their structure, forests are able to aggregate local responses into coherent outcomes, which explains their intelligent behavior. Nutrients and water stimulate root growth. Resources are redistributed by fungi. Behavior is changed by chemical signals. Extremes are controlled via feedback loops. Having a diverse group of players reduces vulnerability. In due course, these procedures balance one another out. Subsurface forest doesn't know what it's doing, but its structure allows effective behavior to emerge, which is why it persists, adapts, and heals. The change in emphasis from minds to processes is a key reason why this rethinking is significant. Intelligence is no longer something entities possess, but rather something systems do. It is no longer contained in people's heads. It manifests itself in contexts where interaction, feedback, and constraints are permitted to influence behavior in the long run. When seen in this light, subsurface forest is not trying to mimic human intelligence. An example of it is it. This in no way reduces subsurface forest to a mere piece of machinery or diminish its importance. Just because you know how something works doesn't mean it gets smaller. The accuracy is improved. The ethereal charm of a forest remains even when its inner workings are exposed. In fact, it gets deeper. Understanding that resilience develops without planning, that stability develops without supervision, and that coordination develops without command all lend weight, not less. People often assume that explanations take away the sense of wonder, and that mystery is necessary for significance. Contrarily, woodlands imply the inverse. Being unknowable is not a prerequisite for their importance. The key is to maintain coherence. Just because something can be described doesn't make it any less meaningful that order might emerge organically, remain subtle, and change on its own. Its practicality gives it significance. Furthermore, forests serve as a reminder that there are other means of achieving order outside design. They don't have any use. They aren't made with the future in mind. Interaction holds them together. Persistence shapes them, and restrictions shape them. It is not the intended, but the viable that last. This viewpoint offers a comforting sense of security. The implication is that control is unnecessary for coherence. No oversight is necessary for stability. When a system's architecture permits it, the system can self-regulate. That lesson lacks drama, but it provides a solid foundation. It encourages modesty as well. The human mind is notoriously swift, violent, and purposeful. If it may be deemed as intelligence, subsurface forest moves slowly, indirectly, and unconsciously. Both are ways of organizing in response to limitations. You can't have one without the other. Both are intrinsic to the natural world. Thinking is more effective than being in the jungle. It goes well with it. When time is plentiful and speed is unnecessary, it reveals the appearance of intellect. It exemplifies decentralized adaptation rather than centralized adaptation. Crucially, this comprehension does not eliminate the possibility of mystery. Simple explanations do not cleanly fit complex systems. Predicting outcomes is challenging, even when the underlying mechanisms are understood. Modest adjustments can have substantial results. Mutual effects can be amplified or dampened via interactions. Past events are significant. Situation is key. The unanswered question is not a result of scientific incompetence. It is a feature of complicated systems. If we try to boil complex systems down to their individual components, we risk losing sight of what makes them systems in the first place. This intricacy is preserved by forests. They aren't mysteries that need to be solved forever and ever. These are processes that are always taking place. What we know now is far from complete. There is always more to discover. Unpredictable conduct is an inevitable result of constantly evolving environments, interactions, and disturbances. Mysticism is not being invited. It recognizes the magnitude. Knowledge and doubt are not mutually exclusive, as subsurface forest demonstrates. Just because you understand how something works doesn't imply you know what it's capable of. Clearance, not closure, is what explanation delivers. A serene solace can also be found in this perspective. The reason forests have managed to survive all this time is not because they are immune to harm, but rather because they are well organized and have options. Sometimes they succeed, other times they struggle. Earning persistence by structure rather than intention is possible, but not guaranteed. This redirects focus from survival stories that are heroic to those that are more subdued and about adjusting. The woodland does not dominate its natural setting. It adapts to its surroundings by fitting within and changing shape as needed. Wow, that's not dramatic. Consistency is key. It feels strange to return to the original question now. How come nodes act so smartly if they can't think? Reason being, thinking was never the exclusive domain of intelligence. Instead than defining adaptive organization, thought is one way in which it manifests. Intelligence can be dispersed, quiet, and slow, as forests show us. It doesn't have to be conscious to happen and yet have an impact. A possessor is not necessary for its existence. A design is not necessary for its emergence. While this knowledge does not put forests in a better or worse light than other systems, it also does not make them any less important. As an example of the order that develops in the natural world, it puts them in their proper place. Not that brains don't matter. What we learn about intelligence from subsurface forest is that there are other ways in which coherence might manifest. All that is needed to generate effective behavior is interaction, feedback, and structure, or is not required by that lesson. It begs for consistency. Coherence is not always forced. Silently, stability can remain. Even without direction, an organization can thrive. There is no thought in the jungle, yet it goes on nevertheless. Realizing the reason behind it doesn't conclude the tale. The effect is one of undistorted clarity, free of projection and hyperbole. That realization is neither the end nor a place to rest. And as the sounds of subsurface forest gradually fade, remember that wisdom doesn't always require thinking. The foraging structures whisper beneath the earth. The sap flows slowly like the rhythm of time, and each leaf silently does its part, all together creating an intelligent, resilient, and harmonious living system. Humans are the same. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to figure out the solution before you can rest. Sometimes, the deepest wisdom comes from allowing yourself to stop. If this video helps you feel more connected to nature, lighter after a long day, then that's exactly what Sleep Science Top 1 wants to offer you. A place where science meets peace. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sleep Science Top 1 channel so that every night you can return to your original rhythm where your body knows how to rest and your mind is allowed to relax. Wishing you a peaceful, deep, and uninterrupted sleep. Let subsurface forest continue to live and let you gently drift off to sleep.